Are you searching for a deeper understanding of your faith?
Inspiring Philosophy is your go-to resource for exploring the rich tapestry of Christian thought.
From biblical archaeology to philosophy of mind, we dive into the topics that matter.
Our content bridges faith and understanding, offering insights into God's existence and the reliability of the New Testament.
Join a community where faith meets reason and discover the answers you've been seeking.
Inspiring Philosophy, where faith meets understanding.
I'm sorry, Master, but I must go all out. Just this once. I don't like you, Muhammad. Dawa boys, you've left me no choice. Bible's been corrupted, that should go the line. But you claim the same book, prophesize your sign, twisting every scripture, faking all the quotes, hiding all the facts, trying to keep your boat afloat. Without lies, Islam dies. Perfect preservation, yeah, that myth got wrecked. Worldly Quran don't even match the text. Used to flex science, now you back in the way. Cause camel embryo facts don't hit the same today. Got the Islamic dilemma, you can't solve that. Every answer you give makes the problem snap back. Say the Bible's corrupt, but your own book cries. Bibles are Allah's words, they can't be revised. If Allah's words can't change, then your claims are fraud. You just argued yourself against the word of your God. Injil's secret book, that's your mystery prize. But the Quran said Christians should judge by it. Lies, then your crew pulled muted like it's just a game. Ruined the life and trashed a man's name. All that dawah talk, but when truth appears, you vanish from the chat like it hurt your ears. Without lies, Islam dies. Can't hide truth, can't spin those lies. Without lies, Islam dies. Dawah cries when the facts arise. Without lies, Islam dies. Can't hide truth, can't spin those lies. Without lies, Islam dies. Dawah cries when the facts arise. We follow Jesus better, sure in your dream. While cutting out his claims like you're cropping the meme. Crown off his head, toss his cross in the bin. The smile for the camera like you're still his kin. Jesus was a Muslim, cute little twist. Redefine the word so the facts don't exist. If labels could change what the records prove. If Pharaoh was a Yahweh fan, then Judas stayed true. Muhammad in the Song of Solomon, boy you made your prophet a fruit. Snuggled up with Solomon and came the man of Ozu. Without lies, Islam dies. Can't hide truth, can't spin those lies. Without lies, Islam dies. Dawah cries when the facts arise. You preach perfect text, but the proof ain't there. Half wash, even your readers don't care. Call the Bible corrupt, but still quote it loud. Trying to find Muhammad just to please your crowd. Song of Solomon, yeah, that's a flesh effect. You just wrote your prophet in the Solomon's bed. Then the man of Al-Zu came riding through all night long, and you say that's true. Jesus was a Muslim, the word plays dead. By that logic, Pharaoh bowed his head. You twist, you spin, but you can't disguise that every dawah claim is built on lies. Without lies, without lies, without lies, without
All right, we are live, and yes, it's a good point. John has said he is surprised that IP and Than have time to stream today after their real estate and doing crime all day. This is true. This is true. If you don't know, Muslims have been trying to dox us online, and they have discovered that I have an extensive criminal record and own a real estate agency. Yeah, this is some pretty.
This is Mike that does that though, not me. My crimes are yet to be.
Yes, it's been a wild ride. So yeah, for those who don't know, Muslims are trying to dox us because they know we're winning and they're getting desperate, and that's one of the things they are doing. But we're not going to talk too much about that today because it's just a bunch of hooey nonsense. We're going to actually respond to a nice, much nicer, more respectable Muslim who did a response to us and a lot of sociological research we put out because we make the claim that Islam is linked to violence, authoritarianism, harm against women, harm against women, and this is problematic. And so we've argued that it's not a good ideology, it's destructive. And so we put out a big video. He responded to it. There were a lot of problems there. We're going to be nice though, because he tried to be nice, although he did call me disingenuous probably every other sentence, which is going to come back to bite him in the ass because yeah, be careful what you wish for.
Despite that, I actually really appreciated the video in the attempt to engage. Like, this was probably one of the rare times I was listening to a Muslim respond to us or argue with something we've done, and then I was like actually able to go through it without getting annoyed at peacocking or anything like that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
If you're listening, man, like seriously, I really appreciate it.
And Slam is correct. She successfully identified him. So yeah. But yeah, I wanted to go through this because this is a subject I love to study. And I was hoping to actually get some engagement on this. And I was like kind of happy. I was like, oh, finally, now we can talk more about this. Great. Excellent. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're going to be diving into that and going through his video just to give you, but I mean, there's a lot of mistakes and there's a lot of arguments that are just semantics. And there's two problems I had with this video is that we point out there's a lot of research showing that Islam is linked to violence and authoritarianism, all sorts of problems. Throughout the video, he just asserts without evidence that this relationship can be fully mediated by foreign occupation in the Middle East. There's no evidence for that. So he's making that positive claim. He never backs it up. He just tries to say that I don't have enough evidence for my positive claim. If that's all he was doing, his argument would have been better. But because he went another step further, saying it can be fully explained by other factors like foreign occupation, there's no evidence of that. And in the studies we're going to go through, I mean, which you guys should use, absolutely, you'll see that. The link is there even after looking at variables like foreign occupation or economics or all sorts of different things. And they say, after we factor out all these variables, we're still finding evidence of Islam linked to conflicts or terrorism or violence, you name it. So that's going to be a problem. The bigger problem with his video is that he doesn't actually respond to the holistic argument. He goes through and he tries to chip away at little pieces here. And because of that, he kind of, I don't think it's intentional, but unintentionally, he takes what I'm doing out of context. As Stan, you know, the video is in 3 stages for a reason. The first stage is to present the raw data. Here's the data. Islam is linked to violence. The second stage is to go, okay, well, is this just a spurious correlation? No. And then I go into research that like this book, for example, which I'll cover here, and go, no, there's actually reasons to think this is coming out of the teachings of Islam. He skips over most of that part. That's actually the core of the video, and he jumps over like 10 minutes of it, like just completely ignores that part. Only responds to a couple aspects of there. And then the third part of the video is to say, and by the way, after we show the sociological research, we show how it's linked philosophically to Islam. We then go through the history and the text to go, yeah, we can actually see the anecdotal evidence of this, the evidence in their own scriptures for this. He doesn't really respond to that holistic argument, and that's why his video ultimately fails to do what he wants to do.
Yeah. Yeah. That basically summarizes my overall thoughts of his response. And I don't mean this in a mean way, and I think people will see this as we respond to it, but I think there's just a lot of mistakes that come up with how we do inferences when it comes to sociology.
Exactly. When we're doing sociology.
So
yeah, you're absolutely right. We'll cover this more, but I mean, a lot of times there's a difference between the sociology and the philosophical inferences. A lot of times the sociological studies don't make the philosophical inferences that we are still allowed to make. So we'll get to that. Let's get to these super chats to start, and then we will jump into some of his video. We're going to go through as much as we can. He didn't respond to every part of our video, so we're not going to respond to every part of his video, but we are going to hit the main arguments. But again, he didn't even address the main argument. He skipped over that, which is kind of disappointing because I was like, dude, you skipped over the main argument when I was citing this book in other books. That was the main argument. It's disappointing. Anyway, he says, I like how people call you a heretic for believing in theistic evolution, even though none of the early church fathers cared about the age of the earth. This is true. Yeah. Well, I mean,
do people actually call you a heretic?
Some do. Yeah. Here's the thing: they did care, but they didn't care like we do. They just assumed that the Earth was young because there was no data to really go against that. But they were more focused on what Genesis 1 was saying, and there was a lot of church fathers that had allegorical interpretations of it, like Clement of Alexandria, Augustine. So they didn't think the days were literal. Some did, but not all did. I pray that one day we'll see a future where Islam is reduced to nothing more than a unit in a history textbook. Well, if Muhammad is a prophet, he predicted that in Sahih Muslim 146, where he said Islam started as something strange, and it would again revert of being strange just as it started, and it would recede between two mosques just as a serpent crawls back into its hole. We can only pray that turns out to be a true prophecy. His one and only true prophecy, that would be. My vision is clear as the Quran. Well, that's not true. You can see enough to write that. You're not blind. What are you talking about, man? Side note, when you use logic and reasoning against a Muslim, you're being ableist, like running around a handicapped child for exercise. It's very, very Islamophobic of you, sir.
I believe the term is cheesy. That's what I've been called by some Dabo guys lately, is cheesy, because I want to do philosophy.
Yeah. Got the master criminal Mike Jones. You know it. Anytime you see a crime report and it says Mike Jones on it, just know that's me. That's me. I'm the only one in the world. So I'm the only Mike Jones in the world. So, when Malik's looking up my criminal record, what's he going to find? Extensive criminal record of every
Mike
state.
has a criminal record, but you're just not going to find it because he's never been caught with the crime that he commits.
You heard it here, folks. Months ago, Mike said he was going to Apologetics Con this year. However, he still doesn't show up on the website. Is he attending, or is only the attendee? No, I'm supposed to speak there. I'll tell you that for you. I will call Jordan this week and figure all that out. Okay. I know I'm supposed to go there and speak. I'm gonna, so we'll get all that figured out. Okay. Mike Jones, American rapper, Aussie motorcycle racer, NFL coach, as well as criminal and real estate mogul and Christian apologist. Boy's been busy. I sure have. You don't think I don't sleep? That's my problem. I just stay up all night doing this stuff. Just wanted to send an appreciation chat. You guys have been doing great and working hard, and I appreciate all you guys do. Y'all help keep me grinding apologetics and philosophy and religion. God bless. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you.
All right,
brother.
I just want to give you kind of a sneak peek at this video. I want to jump to a later part where I'm pointing out Islam allows and endorses slavery, and this is his response to that. Okay, this blew me out of the water, and then we're gonna go back to the beginning. We even see sleeping with sex slaves as sanctioned in the Quran.
There's no such thing as a sex slave in Islam. We don't even refer to them, whether they're male, female, as slaves. They're referred to as that which the right hand possesses, and sometimes they're referred to as like friend, like buddy and buddy, not master and slave.
Yes, guys. They're not slaves in Islam. They're just possessed by someone. They're just friends that we own. We own them, but they're not slaves. This is
Mike. If I buy you and use you to fulfill certain proclivities that I have, but I call you my friend while I do it, does that make it okay?
Well, apparently, in Muslim logic, it does. Apparently, yeah. Like could you imagine that? I'm not enslaving you. I'm just possessing you as my property, man. This is like you go to somebody and you're like, what do you do? Oh, I clean schools. Oh, you're a janitor. No, I'm a cleaning expert.
This is what people do on LinkedIn, man.
Yeah, I know. It's like, bro, they're still slaves. Like, I don't care what you don't call them slaves. They're still slaves, and you just acknowledge you're allowed to possess other people in Islam, which means if you got your way and you had an Islamic world, there would be slavery. But we can't call it that. This is what sort of 1984 Orwellian nonsense is that? All right, let's. I pushed it back to the beginning, and we will now go through it. But I want to give you guys kind of a sneak peek of some of the stuff in this video that's just really, really bad, really bad. I just was like, man, don't be like that. But let's go back to the beginning.
Title, inshallah, we're going to take a look at his points, the studies that he quotes, the arguments that he makes. We're going to refute everything that needs to be refuted and correct everything that needs to be corrected. Now, I want to make this very clear. I'm not going to insult him at all. I'm not going to throw any insults. I want this to remain non-personal and as academic and fair and respectful as possible. So I would encourage you guys to also maintain a respectful.
Appreciate that, but you do call me like disingenuous like 80 times. But just want to know that this is probably one of the better Dawa bros out there, for sure.
This is the nicest person I've like watched.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, John.
I really
DOC.
appreciate
She
it.
says show Quran 2178.
Hey, what's up,
Do that for
guys?
Surah 2178. Yeah, let's just put that up. Yeah, let me just. He's referring to the sex slavery stuff, but let me just put that up. So it has been made permissible for you to be intimate with your wives during the nights preceding the fast. Your spouses are a garment for you as well as for them. Allah knows that you are deceiving yourselves, so He has accepted your repentance and pardoned you. So now you may be intimate with them and seek what Allah has prescribed for you. You may eat and drink until you see the light of dawn, breaking the darkness of night. Then complete the fast until nightfall. Do not be intimate with your spouse while you're meditating in the mosque. These are the limits set by Allah, so do not exceed them. So this is how Allah makes His revelations clear to the people. So be mindful of them. So just want. There you go, Jai. I hope that makes you happy. But let's get back to the video. Hold up, I hit the wrong button. There we go.
Also, any points where my refutation would be identical to a previous refutation to a previous point, I'm also not going to engage in that because
That's
we
fair.
could just put two and two together. Now, without
Fine.
further ado, let's jump right into it.
When you look around the
And by the way, same for us. Same for us.
world, you see a stark contrast. The Islamic world is plagued with conflict, terrorism, discrimination, and war. Whereas Western countries lack the same level of chaos and are far superior in terms of prosperity, equality, security, and overall quality of life.
Now, we're already off to a pretty bad start. This is the thesis of his video. This is the point he's trying to prove. Islam produces bad societies, Christianity produces good societies. And he does this by pointing out Islamic civilizations are riddled with a bunch of issues and Western civilizations are basically prosperous and they're doing amazing. And that's due to Christianity. There are three main issues right off the bat, literally a minute into the video, not even 30 seconds into the video. There are three main issues. One, he's coming from a secular liberal framework. He's presupposing secularism and liberalism, secular values and liberal values. The issue with this is Islam is non-secular. Islam is not liberal. So it basically leads to a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy, some kind of circular argument, in which he starts with secular liberal values are good. And then he says that, oh, Islam is bad. And when you ask why, it's because it's not secular liberal and secular liberal is good. So he's basically using secular liberalism to judge a non-secular, non-liberal beliefs.
Okay. Here's one of the problems we have. He never actually defines what he means by that. Oh, people are saying I read the wrong. Did I read the wrong surah?
Yeah, people are saying that.
All right,
I
real
just
quick.
didn't
Let
want
me
to
do
interrupt
that.
you.
Yeah, no problem. Let me just go back. I read the wrong. My mistake, guys. My mistake. I was going kind of fast. The law of retaliation is set for you in case of murder: a free man for a free man, a slave for a slave, and a female for a female. But if the offender is pardoned by the victim's guardian, then blood money should be decided fairly, and payment should be made courteously. This is a concession and a mercy from your Lord. But whoever transgresses after that will suffer a painful punishment. So yeah, I guess Jai's point is you see, slave. There's a hierarchy here in terms of what people are being treated as. So cool. See, it does use the word slave. That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah. I see what you mean. Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, it's kind of just an irrelevant point. But anyway, back to my train of thought on what we were just looking at. So he says, like, I'm assuming secular liberalism. This is false. He never defines what he means by that, too. This seems to be just another Daniel Akikachu talking point.
Yeah.
Like,
In a way, I'm sympathetic to the principle of the objection here. And what I mean by that is, like, when atheists try to use, like, for instance, problem of evil arguments against theism or something like that, I sound like a broken record half the time because I'm always going to say, well, it just comes down to your axiology or your value theory, right? And the same is true here. However, I think we can agree on enough values to still have the argument run that Islam still produces worse societies than Christianity, if that makes sense.
Here's my problem is what I'm seeing here. Okay. What do you mean by secular liberalism? You don't actually define that, how that's different. And what did I argue? I argued that Islam is linked to more violence, instability, harm done to women, authoritarianism, discrimination, persecution. Wait, are you saying though that that's liberalism? Like, what? Like, okay, like if that's what you're defining as liberalism or secularism, whatever you want to call it, I mean, you're just saying that it's all good stuff. Like, you need to show what we actually believe in and make the case. And by the way, he's going to do this throughout the video. We're not secularists, and we don't argue that Christianity necessarily leads to secularism. We've argued that it is an offshoot, like the redheaded stepchild. It's secularists took things they didn't like about Christianity, and they took some things they did like, and they tried to make an entirely different worldview without its Christian foundation, and it utterly fails. Like it's a different worldview that borrows from Christianity, but it is not created by Christianity necessarily.
Yeah.
So this is what Muslims do. They'll see overlap between us and secularists, and they go, "Oh, you guys are secular liberals." No, we're not. Just because we both agree slavery should be wrong, that does not make us liberals. This is an association fallacy. His argument throughout this video over and over again is an association fallacy. And by the way, once again, if less violence, more instability, more persecution and discrimination is secularism, I don't know what to tell you, man. You just made a really good case for secularism. Like, it's kind of ridiculous. So I want to point that out. Let's jump back into the video. I'm moving ahead to when he starts making points.
Well, I went ahead and went through the Global Terrorism Index of 2024, and I found something that...
Okay, so yeah, I cited the terrorism index here. So let me just back it up a little bit.
As compared to non-Islamist terrorist groups. And when we look at these groups, they constantly cite Islamic passages from the Quran and Sunnah as motivations for their terrorism.
Now here...
Yeah, the Global Terrorism Index shows that the top terrorist groups are all Muslim. They're all Islamic.
He uses the Global Terrorism Index of 2024 to show that Islamic terrorism is the worst kind because it produces the most number of deaths. Well, I went ahead and went through the Global Terrorism Index of 2024, and I found something that basically shoots his argument in the foot. Under properties of terrorism, they state terrorism kills far fewer people than other forms of violence. Armed conflict kills 9 times as many people as terrorism, and homicide kills over 45 times as many people. So when America goes to bomb Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, all these Muslim majority countries, Libya, they are committing a much worse form of violence than terrorism because, according to your logic, if the more deaths occur, then the worse it is. Then therefore, America, Western Christian country, if you would put it that way, would produce something worse than Islamic civilizations because...
What?
That's not the argument.
Not the argument. No. Hey, guys, it's like, hey, guys, terrorism is bad, and Islam is highly linked to this and associated with it. Oh, but there are other things worse than terrorism. That doesn't make terrorism good, or like,
yeah.
Can you imagine? Hey, I'm sorry that your family got blown up by a terrorist, but it could have been worse. I mean, they could have been bombed by China. Like, what?
Here's just another like simple analogy, right? Like, imagine somebody tells you, "Hey, don't eat this thing with this particular chemical in it. It's going to give you cancer." And then somebody responds by going, "Well, I'm still going to eat this thing because while this gives me a 40% chance of having cancer, this other thing could give me an 80% chance of cancer. Should you still eat the thing that gives you the 40% chance?" No.
Nope.
Because all they do is engage in wrongful armed conflict. Secondly, as a sub point, you also have very specific instances of Islamic countries that did go through war, right? They were illegally invaded, they were illegally bombed and attacked and so on and so forth. Or maybe I shouldn't say illegal because that has certain political implications, but
yeah, I was going to say.
I appreciate that clarification that he did.
Yeah.
That was,
I would say wrong.
Yeah.
Wrongfully invaded and bombed. They are now experiencing less terrorism. So back when there were wars, they had more terrorism. Now that the war has subsided for a while, there's less terrorism. One example is Afghanistan. They have a very strict Sharia-compliant Taliban government, but terrorism actually fell. Terrorism deaths fell by 509 in Afghanistan in 2023. 81% improvement. You also have Iraq. The total deaths from terrorism.
That's because they got control of the government and stopped attacking the government that was reigning in the capital. Like, this doesn't sound any better. I mean, it also doesn't show Islam is not linked to terrorism, as we'll get into the research in a little bit.
Terrorism have fallen 99% since 2007. Are they less Islamic? No, but the war has been done for a long time. 2007 was like the middle of the invasion of Iraq. And these deadliest groups that you cite from the Global Terrorism Index of 2024 were all born through some kind of foreign intervention, foreign invasion, some kind of war, some kind of armed conflict. These are the contexts in which these different terrorist organizations that are so deadly were born in. So it's not because of Islam, it's because of the armed conflict. And
okay, here's the problem here that is often made by people when it comes to this. Just because you cite a variable, that does not mean you're saying there aren't any other variables. I fully agree. Terrorism comes from multiple variables: foreign occupation, economic aspects, Islam. Two things can be right. You could say, yeah, this terrorist group got started because they were upset about this war. That does not mean there were not other motivating factors. It's not an either or. This is a false dichotomy. In sociology, we talk about multiple variables. And all I'm saying is Islam is a variable that is linked to and does cause more terrorism ultimately, although there still are other variables. And again, he's trying to explain it all the way by just like other factors, but he cites no evidence to show that other factors fully mediate the relationship.
And lastly, the Global Terrorism Index doesn't reference Islam as being the cause of it. They only
That's true. That's why I cited it and then said, let me cite you all the research for why Islam is associated with conflict, violence, and terrorism.
reference it as being like a methodological framework in which is used to recruit people. So these different terrorist organizations need some justification, and so they use their Islamic values to justify the terrorism, even though it very clearly goes against Islam. In the West, you'll have Western politicians justifying their crimes with secular liberal values. George Bush, I believe, he called the invasion of Iraq a crusade, then later retracted that statement because of the religious connotations of Christianity, and then basically replaced that with, we're trying to spread freedom and democracy. So in the name of these secular liberal values, they bombed and killed 1 million people in Iraq. So again, Islam is not to blame just because a few, literally less than 1% of Muslims hijack their religion and the religious text and use it illegitimately to justify their terrorism and their wrongful actions. Lastly,
okay, so again, where's the evidence for this? This is what we're going to see. He accuses me of not actually giving enough evidence, but again, he has cited no evidence for this. This is problematic ultimately. So let me jump ahead a little bit here because we just sort of hear the same stuff. And let's get to this first study I cite. So this is, I've used this guy's research a lot. Here's his book. We're going to cover some more of this. This is one of the studies I've cited. Highly useful study. I highly recommend you use this one. And you're going to see the way Muslims kind of take it out of context to ignore the actual results.
From 1946 to 2002, and utilized robustness checks for accuracy. He looked at the influence of 3 religions: Christianity, Buddhism, and Islam. In terms of government religious preference, Christianity was strongly negatively associated with war and conflict, but Islam was positively associated with it.
so I want you guys to recall why he brought up this study.
They constantly cite Islamic passages from the Quran and Sunnah as motivations for their terrorism. But Muslim apologists living in the West push back and say they have misinterpreted the Quran. But a ton of research challenges this narrative.
Michael Jones brought up the study to prove that Islam is what is causing this terrorism. It's what's rightfully causing the terrorists to do the violence and everything that they're doing. But what does the study look at? The study looks at different governments that prefer different religions, and if they are more likely or less likely to initiate conflict, armed conflict, to basically strike first. He doesn't look at terrorist organizations. He's not looking at ISIS. He's not looking at Al-Qaeda. He's looking at actual Muslim governments. So the study has nothing to do.
Yeah, I know it has nothing to do with terrorism. You took me out of context. I never said this study is about terrorism. The funny thing is I cited another study later in the video by the same author that covers terrorism. But here's what I actually said in the video, because I still have my VO script. And as you saw earlier in his thing, he kind of cut it up a little bit. I said, but Muslim apologists living in the West push back and say they have misrepresented the Quran and do not represent Islam. Real Islam would never lead to so much conflict and violence, but a ton of research challenges this narrative. Notice I didn't say real Islam would never lead to terrorism, because I brought in the claim already. I was talking about conflicts and violence. Here's the first paper we're going to cover that shows that. So this is a straw man. And since he accuses me of being disingenuous because he accuses me of taking papers out of context, bro, this is a little disingenuous. Okay. I said it shows Islam leads to more conflicts and violence. I didn't say anything about terrorism. So what are you doing?
Yeah, because at best, this is still showing that at best in his case, what this is showing is that the governments that are not inherently terroristic interpretations of Islam are still motivated by Islamic values to approach interstate armed conflict. Like it's still not helping at the end of the day.
No, it's not. And again, this is just the raw data section. The second half of the video, the second part, is about the inference as to why we can connect this to Islam, which again, he doesn't even cover, but he does a little bit of it, but not the parts that are important. But anyway.
Yeah.
to do with terrorism. Secondly, the author himself says, beyond this top level framework, I'm reluctant to make any hypotheses concerning any specific religion. Entire books are written on individual religions, war ethics, and no journal length piece could do justice to all three religions tested here, let alone any of them singly. He then says, my purpose in presenting this framework is only to lay the foundation for the hypothesis that over time and space, different religions, norms influence states' behaviors differently, notwithstanding the inevitability that states' leaders will violate their own religion's war ethics on occasion. So not only does he say that this is just the foundation to a hypothesis, but he says that he wouldn't come to any conclusion based on religion. So why are you coming to conclusions about religions based on his study when the author himself, who knows the study inside and out, wouldn't even do that? Lastly,
I don't know, maybe because I read his book. Maybe that's why. But let's go back. He missed a very important line here that really puts context in this. He puts it on the screen. He doesn't read it, though. He says, furthermore, in this current environment of political correctness, the empirical results revealed here seem to generate some controversy, so I prefer to simply let them speak for themselves. Bro, here he says why he's not going to do the inferring here because of political correctness. He says it right there. He says he's just laying the groundwork with data. But guess what? In his book, he goes into a lot more detail as to why, what he does. You should read chapter 5. You know what chapter 5 is called, Fan?
What is chapter 5 called? Because I have not read that book.
Chapter 5 is called The Permissive War Ethic in Islam. Because he makes his results far more robust. He even separates Shia, Sunni, Orthodox, Protestant, Catholic. He can talks about mediating variables, all sorts. So he strengthens them, and then he adds some more inferences. So I have slides I've made from this in the past.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I mean, well, never mind. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. So here's one of the points he says: Islamic law is frozen at a time when Islamdom was very strong and successful. Its technology equivalent or superior to that of its rivals. Its higher learning flourishing. Its military campaigns largely successful, and Islam itself being propagated rapidly. These characteristics naturally induced historical perception of self-superiority. I've talked a bit about it before. There's a Muslim superiority complex that leads to more discrimination and persecution. And that perception has strongly influenced the Islamic perceptions of otherness. In Islam, the other consists of the forces of deception, unbelief, and shirk, as opposed to the forces of the straight path and submission to God. Such a worldview is a recipe for Islamic hostility toward non-Islam. So, yeah, I know what the author said. Here's a quote he cites in the book. Again, more research he puts into this. He spends a lot of time on this, showing over and over again there's a scriptural basis for actually fighting against Jews and Christians in Quran 929. He goes into this. The study is just sort of him presenting data as the Muslim here quoted to build a hypothesis on. Guess what he does? He continues. Yeah. He builds on that hypothesis. And by the way, this was put into the video. It was
I was just going to ask. I was just going to ask, Mike, did you cite this book in the video?
Oh, did I ever? This is why the video was so long. I just spent so much time quoting this book and another one and some other ones. I mean, yeah, there's more going on here. This is kind of disingenuous for him not to think I'm just quoting that one study and then not citing the author elsewhere where he talks about those inferences.
And even if you didn't cite that book or have that book, there's nothing stopping you from legitimately taking data that you take from a bunch of different studies and then putting together your own lines of inferences to support your hypothesis. Right. I mean, that's just how this works. So
yeah, that's another good point you bring up. When you're doing sociology, a lot of times authors just present their results without actually making the next step. They're not doing the philosophy that we come in and then do. So this is why I go to the sociology for the results, and then I use other sources to make the philosophical inferences. So when you're going through a study, yeah, not all the time you're going to get those the authors are going to say flat out, oh yeah, this is what this leads to, because they're just doing the sociology. They're not doing the philosophy. Right. You need to distinguish that. And as I told you before, I have read studies where authors will cite results that they actually disagree with. Carlos Santana did a paper one time. Let's not agree to disagree, the role of strategic disagreement in science. And he cites results. He gets results that he disagrees with. So, I mean, sometimes you got to look at the results, not the opinions. What did I do when we looked at Davis Brown's paper? I looked at the results. The Muslim here just looked at an opinion in there and ignored the results. That's not good sociological research.
And just for an analogy, right? Because I can hear somebody in my head just going like, okay, well, you're just cherry picking what this scholar is saying or something like that. Which you're not, because you're appealing to another book of his and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But also, how many times do we have Muslims that try to, for instance, independent of sociology, cite people like Bart Ehrman and all these other skeptical scholars to try to argue against gospel reliability, and then they'll freak out when you go, well, these same scholars will say the Quran is nonsense, and they'll be like, well, I don't have to agree with everything that scholar says, and it's like, yeah, exactly the same thing here. So,
right, I know, but I mean, again, it doesn't even apply here because Davis Brown.
It doesn't. No.
agrees with
It's just the closest example I could think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, that's a good point.
When a society is Muslim, they will adopt an Islamic government. We can expect conflicts to increase. Whereas when a society adopts Christianity, this contributes to conflicts decreasing.
This is incorrect because the study doesn't look at conflicts. It looks at who initiates armed conflict first. So if you had, for example, country A is stealing oil from country B, and then country B retaliates by attacking country A, country B would be the one with the higher likelihood of starting an armed conflict. That's what the study looks at. It doesn't look at context, doesn't look at why, doesn't look at reasoning, doesn't look at whether it's justified or not. It just looks at who's more likely to start an armed conflict or resort to violence. Would it be the Western countries? Would it be the Christian countries, the Buddhist countries, the Muslim?
Yeah, that's what I said. That's what I said. Like you just said this is wrong, and then you went on to state basically the same thing I said in your own words. Yeah. Countries that have an Islamic preference are more likely to start and create conflicts. That means they're more likely to lead to conflicts. What are you doing?
The Muslim countries. That's what the study looks at. Secondly, the author himself articulates his thoughts in a way that seems like he strongly disagrees with what you're saying, with your conclusion. He says, the way forward is exploring why. No explanation is offered for the different results herein because no journal-length article could do justice to any. It might...
Stop there. No journal-length article could do justice. Guess where he does.
You and
justice.
I both said the same thing. Sorry.
Well, I mean, we both saw it. It's like he didn't see it when he said it. It's like, man.
It might be related to religious identity of the population. It might be related to the religion's effects on other factors that themselves stoke or suppress conflict. For example, regime type, alliances, possibly GDP. It might be related to the relative religiosity of adherents of the tested religions. For example, then he quotes Stephen Fish, in which he argues that Muslims overall are more fervent religionists than Christians, meaning that Muslims are more religiously passionate. They're more intensely passionate about their religion than Christians are. And so Christians might not go to war for Christian reasons, but there'll be Christians who go to war for secular liberal reasons. And these studies don't include secular.
Yeah, that's kind of making the point for us. When we go to war, it's not because of Christianity. When you guys go to war, it's because Islam is a factor that is leading to that. Whereas Christianity is actually causing more peace. When we go to war, it's because of other reasons. That's making the point for us.
I was just going to say, how is this an objection? Like, this is literally he literally just said Islam's the cause of this, and Christians do not use Christianity as a reason for violence.
There we go. Perfect. All right, we agree.
Secular liberalism as being a preference to Christianity. They actually see it as the opposite. And then he continues with a few caveats. He says a few caveats on order. First, the effect of religion is not necessarily constant over centuries. It's certainly possible, even probable, that the effects of the religion studied here were different 500 years ago and different again 1,000 years ago. For example, the Christian war ethic was markedly different during the Crusades than today, but so likely was the Islamic war ethic. So this isn't deterministic in the slightest. It's relative to the time, the place, and other factors. And this does not exempt.
Yep, he doesn't say that. Notice what he read versus what he said. He read, this is a possibility. This is a probability. I can't. Does he provide any support for that? No, he doesn't. But then Rami here, if that's how you pronounce his name, then goes the one said, oh, this is what it is. It's actually culturally time-bound situated. No. That's a speculation, but you're treating it as if it's a fact. That's not fair. So yeah, that does not work.
I would be curious to see how he would try to justify that, because at least off the top of my head, I feel like the empirical and historical data would not suggest that it's time bound, knowing the history of Islam.
Yep. And again, taking things out of context. I addressed this later in the video where I give a lot of historical context that show that, no, in the past, Islam was just as violent, if not more. So again, he didn't actually respond to this video holistically in the whole argument. He's trying to chip away at parts and then ignore other parts of the video where I addressed like that specific objection.
disproportionately
So this is the next study I cite by Monica Duffy-Toft.
an Arab Muslim phenomenon, even when controlling for standard variables and potential confounders. The results are clear that religion is a motivator for rebellion among Arab Muslims, while their Christian counterparts were more likely to be motivated along secular lines after 1990.
Now, this is another case of inspiring philosophy quoting a study that refutes his entire point. Recall why he brought these studies up. He's trying to prove that Islam is a cause or the cause of these terrorist acts and these problems, the wars, the conflicts. He's trying to...
No, you just changed, dude. You just changed the story. You said I brought up these studies for terrorism. Now you acknowledge I brought them up for terrorism, conflicts, war, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going back on the very thing you said. You're contradicting yourself from earlier. You now are acknowledging the truth.
Trying to prove that Islam is the cause or a main cause of it. But let's take a look at what the author of the study actually says. She says the practice of religious outbidding is particularly likely to unfold in the Arab world, given that the Arab world has been experiencing more transitions to democracy than other regions of the world. This makes the Arab world particularly susceptible to practices of religious outbidding. And then she gives a piece of evidence for that. She says, one only has to look at the events unfolding in the wake of the Arab Spring to see these dynamics at play. For instance, strong domestic international pressure to democratize following the ousting of Muammar Gaddafi in Libya in 2001 paved the way for a process of religious outbidding in which various Salafist jihadist groups emerged in a civil war that started in 2014, including the Islamic State. Similarly, when Saddam Hussein was removed from power in Iraq in 2003, the armed opposition initially consisted mainly of former members of the Ba'ath Party, yet Salafist jihadist groups soon hijacked the insurgency in Iraq. In short, the religious civil wars in the Arab world stem from a process of democratization that increases competition and ultimately instability. The Arab world experiencing all of this is due to other countries forcing democracy. And also note, she specifies the Arab world. I mean, the entire hypothesis that she quoted that was proven here was that the Arab Muslim world is more susceptible than the non-Arab Muslim world, meaning that Muslims in other countries that are not in the Middle East or the Arabian Peninsula, they don't have these problems. They don't have these struggles. They don't have these civil wars at the hands of Islam. It's just a uniquely Arab thing. Again,
that's going too far. She doesn't say that, because she specifically looked at the Arab world. She did not say, well, this doesn't happen outside of the Arab world, because her data set didn't allow that. But let me just pull up the paper. Okay. Let me go up here a little bit.
I'm pulling it up too.
So, first of all, she points out these models provide support for hypothesis 1b. Centrally religious civil wars are disproportionately Arab-Muslim phenomenon, even when controlling for standard variables and potential confounders. Now, the section he cited is down here, right before this. If you just go back and you read the conclusion, well, first of all, even in this, she notes that it's something he even read. It's a process of religious outbidding in which various Salafist jihadist groups emerge in a civil war that started in 2014, including the Islamic State. So religious outbidding is still part of the process there. She's not saying it can be fully mediated by these variables. If we just read the following in the conclusion, we're going to see that. Notice what she says. All else equal, Islam has bloody inwards, if not bloody borders, in reference to Samuel Huntington's astute observation some 2 decades ago, although the findings reported here are more nuanced. Furthermore, the puzzle that emerged more clearly is one about Arab Muslims and not one of Islam and religious civil war. Fair enough. That's what her data said aloud. The results are clear that religion is a motivator. What? The results are clear that religion is a motivator for rebellion among Arab Muslims, while their Christian counterparts are more likely to be motivated along secular lines. So once again, in reply to our friend here, I'm not saying Islam is the only factor. I'm saying it is a factor, and she agrees. It's a motivator. That does not mean there are not other motivators. That does not mean that Islam is the only explanation. It is still something that is contributing, whereas when we compare it to Christianity, we don't see Christianity contributing to violence. Therefore, Islam has factors internal to it that add to the violence.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find a way to like steel man him here.
I don't know. I don't see how this helps him at all. That's what was so weird. It's like, listen, one of us is citing the results of the study and one of us is cherry picking. I'm the one citing the results. You're finding quotes in there you think you can use to then extrapolate and say, well, the whole study doesn't show that. But I can just go to the very next paragraph on the page you quoted and she's going to say what I'm saying. So what are you doing? That's being quite disingenuous. So stop accusing me of being disingenuous when you're kind of doing it, bro.
Anyway, let's get back to this video, and then we will
Yeah.
play a little bit more, and then we'll get to some super chats.
And your point being disproven by the study you brought.
Jonathan Fox found that Islamic civilization is the most prone to conflict.
Now, this I think is a very silly argument. The entire point of the study is to test a hypothesis that has been around for a while. And the hypothesis was that the Islamic civilization would clash with Western civilization. It was actually kind of like a prophecy, kind of a hypothesis that was being tested. And they wanted to see, is Islamic civilization going to compete and basically fight with Western civilization? And the study found that that was false. Islamic civilization is not attacking Western civilization, although Islamic civilization is more prone to conflict. That doesn't mean Islam or the Islamic civilization is causing the conflict, just that they're more prone to conflict. And we already discussed, like in the last study, we saw that the Arab world was more susceptible to the civil wars because of democratization and other factors and other political instabilities. We also have...
Okay, the other study did not show other factors fully mediated the relationship. You took it out of context while accusing me of that. And you just said that the Islamic world is more prone to conflict. How does that help your case? You're admitting it's more prone to conflict. Okay. Now it's your job to show that proneness to conflict is mediated by other factors, which you can't do. And these papers I'm going over and you're now citing don't show that. They show Islam is still a motivator involved. So not helping you.
For anybody that's wondering what we mean by fully mediated here, just imagine this scenario, right? I punch Mike in the face, and your hypothesis for why I did that is because I'm a bad person.
You're bad.
And then I tell you, no, Mike made fun of the fact that I wear glasses. Does that fully mediate the situation such that like you can't place any blame on me now? Well, the answer is no, right? And so it's the same thing here, right? You can point to one of the variables being foreign democratization, but that doesn't mean that the rest of the variables are not variables at play, meaning in this case, Islam.
Yeah. Next time marker.
Or that can combat America and other superpowers in the world would ever rise again. Regardless, most of the conflict that's seen is not with the Western world, which means it's most likely internal conflict, which again proves the point that Islam will not destroy everything because it's localized mainly to the Middle East, which is riddled with foreign intervention and other issues, as I mentioned before.
So Islam's not going to destroy everything because it's just creating all sorts of internal civil wars and terrorism and conflicts. But if you make everything Islamic civilization, yeah, you're just going to increase the violence and wars. Like, so so he just made a great argument for why Muslims should stop evangelizing.
Well, especially because I don't know if you caught this part. He said it's not going to destroy everything because it's localized to this particular geography. That's how I understood him, right? So if it just stays there, it won't destroy everything.
Good. I agree. It should. You heard it here, folks. Muslims don't want Islam to spread. Keep it where it is. Keep it contained. That way it won't destroy everything. Totally agree. Love the argument. I'm going to use that.
Religious legitimacy is about 50% more important for conflicts involving Islamic majorities than for conflicts involving non-Islamic majorities, including those involving Christian majorities. Islamic conflicts score about twice as high on both the composite religion variable and on the relevance of religion variable as non-Islamic groups, and about 2.5 times as high as Christian majorities. Thus, there is clear evidence that religion is considerably more important to conflicts involving Islamic majorities and less important in conflicts involving Christian majorities.
To be honest, I don't even know why he brought up the study and quoted that part because, religious authority and legitimacy is important to Muslims because we actually care about our religion. Christians might not care about that anymore because they're secular and liberal, but Muslims do care about legitimacy religiously.
Yeah, that's right. So if you care about religious legitimacy, you should be more violent. And this is good? What?
Yeah. I really do wish I could find a way to break through to Muslims on this, because like Christians do care about religious legitimacy, but the way that manifests is just markedly different than it does for Muslims. We don't attack people. We don't threaten people. We don't turn to violence typically. We try to do things in a diplomatic way without harming each other and crossing boundaries and all this other stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Like Fox is showing that like because Muslims care about religious legitimacy,
in their religious worldview, that leads to more violence and discrimination, albeit as well, because he covers that as well. But anyway, let's get back to him.
So yeah, of course, they're going to look to that when it comes to every aspect of life, their governance, and any wars or conflicts that are fought. It's not that Christians are less violent. They just don't really care about Christianity. When it comes to war, they look at it through secular liberal lens, and they use secular liberal values to judge it. And
again, where's your evidence?
Well, he said Christians don't care when it comes to like war and all that stuff. And it's like, yeah, it's not like Christianity doesn't have this whole motif of already but not yet. And Jesus is the one that will come back, and he will be the king. We're not supposed to go over and take over nations. Exactly. We're supposed to spread the gospel to all nations.
Exactly. So yeah, we just don't resort to violence. And again, this is still the association fallacy. He's shown no evidence or proof that we are just secular liberals and we're only operating from those values, because there's just some overlap between secularism and Christianity.
Again, surprise, surprise, the study refutes his argument.
Sure.
Be that as it may, the importance of religion to the conflict among Islamic groups does not appear to be the central theme of the stereotype of the Islamic militant. The central theme is violent, and the evidence here does not support the argument that Islamic ethno-religious groups are particularly violent. He then goes on to say, funny enough, yet despite this evidence, the stereotype of the Islamic Muslim persists. The stereotype that Islamists and Muslims are particularly violent is still around, even though there's no real evidence for it. That's what they're saying. And this is the exact stereotype that you are perpetuating. So it's like you're slapping the study in the face, slapping the author in the face while using his study to argue something that he's trying to disprove. And then he says,
mind you, I quoted what he said. Okay, just remember that. I didn't paraphrase. I directly quoted. So make it make sense.
That one reason for this, one explanation for this may be that it is the contrast between Islamic and Christian groups that is responsible for the stereotype.
Keyword is may.
Because the West is predominantly Christian, other groups may be evaluated in comparison with the more familiar Christian groups. So,
okay, let's pull up the study once again. The first thing to remember is he didn't explain what Jonathan Fox defines as the Muslim stereotype. He does it in the very first paragraph. Okay. One type of fundamentalist is commonly believed to exhibit violent tendencies more often and more intensely. This type is the Islamic militant. Okay. So it's important to emphasize this author is not endorsing that stereotype. Okay. Yeah. I didn't say that Muslims are just inherently more violent. I said Islam is a factor that contributes to more violence. And then I cited the study to show that. So this doesn't really help him. And if we just go through the study, we see that he's saying what I'm saying. That's why I just quoted it. This is why I just quote the study. So this kind of stuff doesn't happen where people accuse me of misrepresenting it. Because go ahead.
I was just going to ask you something, because I'm just kind of catching this now. I feel like he's almost committing a Motte and Bailey here, because your claim is a lot more modest than what he's attacking. Because he's attacking the claim that Islam is like intrinsically going to be producing Muslims that are more violent necessarily, or something like that, right? And that's not what you are doing, hence the Motte and Bailey fallacy.
Exactly. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. So let me put this back up here. Yeah. So let me see if I can make this bigger for people. That make it bigger? Yes. Good. Excellent. It worked. Okay. So again, this is the part I'm citing here. I believe it is. Religious involvement is higher. Yeah. So you see that. It goes on. Islamic majorities engage in higher levels of political discrimination than Christian majorities, but less than groups in other categories. Okay. That is, these results indicate that autocracy may provide an alternative explanation for the difference between Islamic and other regimes, especially Christian regimes. One of the points he's making is that Islam tends to be linked to more autocracy. And then because you have much more authoritarian governments, they respond in more violent ways to maintain control. It says religious legitimacy is significantly higher for Islamic regimes, yet there is no significant correlation between religious legitimacy and democracy, autocracy, political discrimination, yada, yada, yada. Finally, testing the interaction between ethno-religious majorities and minority groups provides further evidence that it is something inherent in the religion that causes the difference between Islamic and Christian groups. Inherent. This is the point I'm just making. Yeah. So again, you're absolutely right. It's a Motte and Bailey fallacy. So
yeah, I'm surprised I didn't catch that earlier, but the first time I ran through this.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is what it is. But yeah, there we go. Let's get to some super chat. And by the way, if you combine both of Fox's studies, that's also important because he's noting there's something inherent in the religion that is leading to these things. And we see the Islamic civilization has far more conflicts, violence, struggles. What does that tell you? Anyway, let's get to some super chats and we will jump back in. My indulgence to receive the IP blessing for my debate with David Pullman from Faith Because of Reason and against Monkey Boy and Danny Phil Talk. You have my blessing. Go do it.
Nice. I hope my friend wins. The joke there is I'm friends with everybody except for Monkey Boy there. I'm
Well,
not
I
saying
hope-
Monkey Boy's not cool.
I hope the Christians win. There. I'm still praying, but I want to start a Christian apologist class at my church. Hosea 4:6 is spurring this desire. Where do I start? That's what's on my arm there. Oh, pull the people in the class. Pull the people in your church. What topics do they want to cover, and then go from there. Do
Yeah, be entrepreneurial about it. Like, put yourself out there.
that. Mm-hmm. Based. Reminds me of hiring sites will have sandwich artists, and it's just being some guy working at a Subway. Anyways, Bond Stevens is a slave girl. Yeah, exactly. You're not a slave. You're just possessed. You're not working at a Subway. You're a sandwich artist. Come on. This is unrelated, but what do you make of 1 Corinthians 15:29? I ask because I'm surrounded by many Mormons, and they tend to use this passage to support their belief in baptism of the dead. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's the verse. Otherwise, what do people mean by being baptized on behalf of the dead? If the dead are not raised at all, why are people being baptized? Yeah, Paul's not endorsing it. He just knows this practice is going on. He's asking a question as to why those people believe and do this. That's all. If you look at it in the
Do
context,
Mormons
he's not endorsing it.
baptize dead people?
Yes, they do.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Reasons for the crusade, Islamic jihad. Yeah, that was one of the factors for sure. Yeah, that's probably one of the motivating factors to get it started. And then they got off course and went and did a bunch of horrible things. Yeah. What is his hypothesis? Why are Muslim countries more violent, if not Islam? Every alternative I can think of is either demonstrably false or absurd. His hypothesis is that it's from foreign occupation. It's trying to force democracy onto the Middle East. There's no study that shows that, though. So he's made that positive claim. He has no evidence to back it.
I'm open to hearing a study, like reading and seeing a study on that too, by the way. Like, I'd actually am curious about that and how that actually does play a role within what you're seeing. I'm not denying that. We need evidence.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Let me, real quick, I just want to put up Jonathan Fox's other paper here for a second. Let me pull that up because I want to put up the Islamic civilization stuff. So again, if you I cited these two studies in conjunction for a reason, because if you look at his results, just look at the Islamic one here, like much more compared to all the other ones in terms of what it's outputting. Look at the bottom's numbers. Again, I'm not saying all the sociologists I cite are going to make the same philosophical inference, but that doesn't mean we can't. We definitely can. We're
It
seeing a
doesn't
lot more
stop us from
violence.
using their data.
Exactly. And that's what this Muslim who's responding was doesn't seem to gather. When you cite a study and you want to cite its results, that doesn't mean you have to take all of their opinions along with them. But again, if you combine this study and the other one, you have a pretty strong case that Islam is linked to more violence, and it is a factor that motivates more of it. And he even says so in the other paper that there's something seems to be inherent in the religion. So got to keep things in context here. Anyway, let's get back to his video. So moving on to the next one.
Religion, which in turn points our attention to explanations for Islamist terrorism that have a religious dimension.
So recall, he read the quote as Muslims may be prone to tolerate terrorism in the name of their religion. Let's look at the full quote. It again raises the question of whether Muslims may be prone to tolerate terrorism in the name of their religion. He's not saying Muslims may be prone. He's saying that there's a question to whether Muslims may be prone. You took it from a question to a claim, to a statement. And the worst part is he actually gives different arguments that people provide to explain why Muslims are more prone to tolerate terrorism, like Robert Spencer's argument, but then he refutes them and he basically doesn't take a position on it. So why are you making claims and why are you basically misquoting him when he...
I didn't, because it's a statement. And I included the very important part of the quote most important part, which is he just says may. This is like turning a molehill into a mountain. The part I quoted is a statement. This raises the question as to whether this could be the case. Yeah, I cited that part. It may be the case. That's the same thing. How is that? This is such a semantic move. It doesn't make any sense.
And it doesn't deal with the data or the inferences you make. I'm not trying to be a jerk here, but it's basically just like a whataboutism.
Yeah.
It's, well, this guy also said this, and it's like, okay, but how does that actually interact with the inference line that we have in this video? It doesn't.
If I would have cut out the word may in my video, he'd have a point. But because I didn't, he doesn't seem to understand the issue.
When he's not making any of these points. Really, like, it's just a bad look and it doesn't help your argument.
Choi and Brown also focused on terrorism and found that Islam is a strong and consistent predictor of suicide attacks and increased terrorism. The more Islam there is in a country, the more likely there will be an increase in suicide attacks.
Now, believe it or not, this study actually doesn't help his case much either. Firstly, Islam is defined as more Muslim population, not as Islamic doctrine. So the more Muslims there are, the more Islamic they are. That's kind of like the point. Secondly, they look at suicide attacks in specific, not terrorism as a whole. So they're not comparing terrorism. They're not comparing like the level of deadliness. They're just comparing suicide attacks in particular. Thirdly, control variables don't always necessitate more accurate readings of reality. You can actually use control variables to further your own bias. Now, I'm in no way, shape, or form accusing them of doing that. By no means am I saying that they did that. All I'm saying is that control variables don't necessitate that. It's a more accurate depiction of reality. Next, on the topic of control variables, two super important control variables, being civil war and occupation, failed to converge on half of the main regression models. Now, what does that mumbo jumbo mean? It means that they couldn't produce any significant results when they had control variables of occupation and civil war. So they had to remove them entirely from those three main regression models, meaning that they broke the model, so they were kicked out. And civil war and occupation are two, arguably, of the most significant predictors of terrorism. So half their main regression models don't even account for them. Next, once again, the authors say something that kind of just refutes your entire point. They write, when Muslim fundamentalists harboring grievances against their governments resort to suicide terrorism, they must justify their violence. Despite Islam itself not being necessarily violence prone, Muslim fundamentalists exploit it to their political advantages by selectively citing Islamic texts.
Okay, a lot to deal with here. Let me pull the paper up. So he's claiming that so here's the paper. He's claiming that, for example, it doesn't talk about religious texts. It absolutely does. Covers this in detail. And I actually covered this study later in the video because I cited the sections where they go into religious texts. Here are some, for example. Like, this is all throughout the paper. They cite this over and over again. Talk about that. I cited this section here later in the paper, later in the video, I mean. So absolutely, they do refer to text as a motivating factor. But let's go down to what he's referring to here. So here's where the model. Here's the model here. You can see that foreign occupation, it's mediated as what in this one. It's excluded in models 4, 5, and 6. Now, why is that? We just go down and read note 18. However, Stata's failure to achieve convergence when processing the original model requires us to remove the foreign occupation and civil war controls from models 4 to 6. The failure of the convergence is mainly due to little variation between those two variables and the dependent variables. So it's not because they failed to achieve and so they threw them out. It's because there was a problem with their actual data they were using. They used two different data sets. One's from model 1 to 3, one through models 4 to 6. And the models 4 to 6 had issues. So I'm not sure what he's getting at. Not sure why he worded it that way. Maybe we're misunderstanding each other. But no, it doesn't matter because we still are seeing this in the results. So this is not helping him at all.
Yeah, I wish we could have some clarification there.
Yeah.
On what he's trying to argue.
Yep. So now he cited that quote, despite Islam itself not being necessarily violent prone, Muslim fundamentalists exploit it to their political advantage by selectively citing Islamic texts. Yes, we never said it's necessarily violent prone. There are plenty of Muslims, as we said in the past, there are plenty of Muslims in the world that are completely peaceful. We do not say Islam is necessarily violent prone. So that's not refuting how we're using the study or what we're using it in. We're saying Islam is still a factor that does lead to more violence. And that's what this paper is showing, especially when it comes to suicide attacks. So, yeah, not sure. And now he's going to get to this in a bit. So let's let him play this and then we will get back into that.
So the authors are explicitly stating that Islam is not necessarily violence prone, and these terrorist groups are revolting against their government. So the reason for these suicide attacks and terrorism is because they're revolting against their government, not because of Islam. Again, supporting the idea that the reason that these attacks are taking place is most likely due to democratization, foreign intervention, civil war, occupation, and these other factors, and not Islam inherently as a religion. And I think
Okay, then where does the paper say that those variables fully mediate it? They don't. They actually try to do that. They try to say,
Yeah.
can we fully mediate these suicide attacks with these other factors? They say they can't. They do this throughout the paper. They say that in the abstract, they say the overall analysis suggests that Islam is positively associated with suicide attacks, although the degree of its association is not uniform among all branches. So yeah, they mediated for foreign occupation. I don't know how this is helping you. They say, for example, where is it on page 7? We include several confounding variables common in the previous research: human rights protection, democracy, foreign occupation, and armed groups, economic development, civil war, and total terrorist attacks. They're still finding an association after that. So this guy cannot claim that, oh, the other variables are mediating that, because the very study he's now referring to doesn't show that result. It doesn't support his own positive claim. Islam is still linked after mediating for those things.
I think the final nail in the coffin for inspiring philosophy when it comes to the study is this quote from the authors. Our overall analysis suggests that Islam is more than epiphenomenal, but less than casual, meaning that it's more than just coincidence, but it's less than a casual correlation. You can't necessarily say Islam produces this. They continue by saying, especially since we draw our inferences and conclusions on the basis of empirical tests that are all about the probability of such violent events, we cannot claim that Islam is a direct cause of the deadliest political violence. However, our tests indicate a strong correlation between the two factors. Countries with more Muslims are more vulnerable to suicide terrorism than countries with fewer Muslims. Our tests further suggest, however, that different branches and sects of Islam are not equally prone. So the two things that you quoted as being evidence that Islam causes terrorism and suicide bombing, the authors themselves are saying Islam is not necessarily to blame, and you cannot conclude that.
Another paper. Okay. Hey, Than.
Mm-hmm.
Guess who one of the study authors was?
Who? Yeah.
Yeah, this guy again. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, you'll often get this in sociological research. They're not going to make those kinds of philosophical inferences that we are still allowed to make from their results. This is not dealing with the overall issue. And he even cites, overall, our tests indicate a strong correlation between the two factors after controlling for all those variables. Now, if they don't want to make the inference there in that paper, which is common in the studies, that doesn't mean we can't, and that doesn't mean they don't make the inference in other places.
And they tell you why they don't make the inference, by the way, right? He read it. I think he just missed it. I'll read it again. Especially since we draw our inferences and conclusion on the basis of empirical tests that are all about the probability of such violent events, we cannot claim that Islam is the driver. The scope of the study doesn't allow them within the journal paper itself to make that inference. This is a common theme you will see in sociological papers.
Thank
They
you. You
can
said it better
only
than I
make
can.
inferences based off the data and the scope of the data that they are working with in the particular journal paper they are working on.
Exactly. You said it
That's
better
why
than I
books are for.
could. That's what the books are for. Exactly. And again, we're still in the part of the video where I'm just citing the raw data here. I'm not making those inferences yet. I mean, I kind of am because I'm going to get there, but I'm kind of hinting to it because I'm trying to do foreshadowing. But that's not the core of it. And so anyway, let's move on ahead to this video.
There are a few problems with this. First and foremost, Muslim countries do not represent Islam. I know this might come as a shocker to you guys, but Muslim countries are not perfect. They don't represent Islam. Secondly, there are instances.
What are we supposed to do then? Okay.
Wait, but then why are you complaining about like Christian dominant countries being secular liberal values and like all that stuff?
The secular countries do not represent secularism, guys. Christian countries do not represent Christianity. Western countries don't represent the West. I like this is quite honestly, this is cope. Let's just play this through.
do not represent Islam. I know this might come as a shocker to you guys,
Yeah, it does.
but Muslim countries are not perfect. They don't represent Islam. Secondly, there are instances throughout history where Christians and Jews did fare well in Muslim countries. For example, in the Roman Christian Empire, they banished all the Jews, they destroyed the temple, used it as a garbage dump, and burnt synagogues down. When the Muslims conquered Jerusalem, they brought back Jewish families. They brought 80 Jewish families to move to Jerusalem to kind of fix what the Romans, what the Christians did. They also
Now, I cover this more in the later part of the video, but again, the point I want to make here is how is this different than when a socialist says that's not real socialism every time someone tries socialism? You've just made all of this unfalsifiable. Anytime someone implements Islam and it leads to bad results, that's not real Islam, guys. That's just, that's something else. That's something else entirely. And you can't blame Islam for that. That's not how real world sociology works. You got to look at where people are implementing the ideology to see the results, whether positive or negative. And if they're negative results, you just can't be like, well, that's not real Islam because Islam would never lead to those negative results. Therefore, it has to not be Islam. That's a circular argument. You're basically saying, okay, Islam is always good. It always leads to good things. Therefore, if it leads to negative results, that's not real Islam. Why? Because Islam only leads to positive results. You're arguing in a circle. Yep, I agree. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit here because we kind of covered that.
a bad thing.
Under Sharia, Jews and Christians are allowed to remain in their respective religions.
Okay, here, we've moved on from the violence part. So we've gone through all the studies where he claims to refute me, even though they don't, because he doesn't understand how sociological papers work. But anyway, now we're moving on to another part of the data sets I'm using. I may have cited a bunch of research showing Islam leads to more discrimination, more persecutions. Guess what his response is going to be? Yeah, you're right, and that's a good thing. Watch.
But we are treated as second-class citizens and do not have equal rights.
Yes, in Islamic law, Muslims and non-Muslims are not treated exactly the same. One example of this is non-Muslims have to pay jizya, which is a tax, and Muslims have to pay zakat, which is a greater tax. The Muslims pay more than the non-Muslims in taxation. Secondly, non-Muslims don't have to fight our wars, and Muslims do fight those wars and protect the non-Muslims. The non-Muslims are protected by the state. They're protected by the Muslims, and they don't have to fight. This is very similar to the whole women aren't equal to men in Islam kind of thing. They don't have the same exact rights, but they don't have the same exact responsibilities either.
So wait. Is he basically arguing that, yeah, you're going to be inferior and that's okay? Anyone in the chat want to be protected by people who think you're inferior? You think this is what the Muslims are saying. Guys, come let us protect you. We know you're inferior to us and we'll protect you. Like, anyone want to take that deal? What is going on?
Can we just flip the script and say Christianity teaches this? And so if you live in the West, this is what you have to deal with. And Rami, do you want that?
But by the way, it's not true that the jizya is always less than the zakat. And let me just cite this video, for example, and then I'll cite a hadith as well.
From France.
Yeah, is for the non-Muslim. I heard it's between 2.5 or 5%.
I don't understand your question correctly, but jizya is a form of taxation that is imposed upon those who are non-Muslims yet living on Muslims' territory and lands. And it's quite a small amount of money where they get to live, and taxation is being taken all over the world. It is, in some cases, less than the zakat that we Muslims are obliged to pay.
In some cases, it is less. Now, this is when I looked this up, no, it's not always less. The jizya is not always less than the zakat that Muslims pay. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's not. Let me give you an example. In a hadith, okay? Umar expelled the Jews and Christians from the Hijaz. When Allah's messenger had conquered Khaybar, he wanted to expel the Jews from its land because it became the property of Allah, his apostles, and the Muslims. Allah's messenger intended to expel the Jews, but they requested him to let them stay there on the condition they would do labor and get half of the fruits. So here you have Jews either have to be expelled or they have to pay 50% tax on whatever they produce.
Did that video you just played, is that a sheikh?
Yeah.
Did he say you pay the jizya, you get to live?
Pretty much, yeah. No, that's it. Yeah. So, yeah, that's right, guys.
Hey, that's a good thing. That's a
Islam
good
is
thing.
so good. We pay them money so they don't kill us. See, Islam's not violent. What? Come on. Islam's not violent. We just got to pay them money so they don't slaughter us. Like, it's fine. And by the way, the jizya is meant to be a humiliating tax. Like that's in Surah 9, for example. We pay it to be humiliated and subjugated. That's the point of it, because we're inferior, apparently.
Muslim men have to provide, Muslim women do not have to provide. And this is not because one is better than the other. It's because they're different roles in the house or they're different roles in society.
We are forbidden from evangelizing, public worship.
Yes, it's a Muslim country. Of course, non-Muslims are forbidden from evangelizing. Again, we're not secular liberal people. We don't need to allow other people to evangelize when the state is based on Islam. If you're going to presuppose that we do need to, then you need to prove why that's good. You need to prove why secularism is good or correct.
Wait a minute. We can't. Wait a minute. Wait.
That's
We need
really
to-
easy.
How can we if you don't let us evangelize our worldview? Like he says, like you need to show why evangelizing your worldview is good. We're not going to allow you to do that though if we were in power and control. What is going on? That's ridiculous.
Islam presupposes evangelism. How are you going to bring Islam to other countries without evangelism if Islam is not a violent religion?
Yeah.
Just a question.
And of course, he's doing the very thing that he would not let us do if he was in power. He's evangelizing for Islam.
Yeah.
Like rules for me, but not for thee. But again, Islam's not going to lead to violence or persecution or anything like that. And by the way, like this is something that I would argue is inherent in Islam that leads to more violence, because you set this authoritarian regime where you're going to force Christians to either violate their own religion or they're going to be persecuted and attacked by the state, because we are commanded by Jesus to spread Christianity because of the Great Commission. We are commanded. So how is Islam not going to cause more violence if you guys get power and you say no more evangelizing? That's going to lead to violence, would it not? Yes, it would. So yeah, this is another way Islam leads to violence.
Correct. Also, in the past, Christians forbade other religions from preaching, and they killed people for their other beliefs, whether they were claimed to be Christian or not. Do you blame Christianity for those instances?
Building new churches or repairing old ones.
There's a difference of opinion and difference in meaning between expanding and repairing. If repairs are necessary for a church or a synagogue or a place of worship, they are allowed. But if they want to expand or build new ones, no, that's not allowed. And again, you need to demonstrate why secular liberalism is good, why it's correct, why it's right. Don't presuppose it upon.
You need to actually demonstrate we're secularists when we're clearly Christians. Why do you keep strawmanning and misrepresenting us?
On us and then get mad at us or say that we're wrong for not conforming to it. You need to demonstrate why it's true and why you're using it and presupposing it to begin with.
Dhimmi men are forbidden from marrying Muslim women, but Muslim men can marry non-Muslim women.
I don't know why this one is like surprising.
Were you going to say something?
I just want to say this. The very thing you are doing right now falls more within the category of secular liberal values than Islamic values. Like, you have made a response video to us. We have engaged in intellectual interfaith dialogue. Islam does not allow that. Why are you doing something that is not an Islamic value and is instead what you take to be a secular liberal value if it's bad?
Fair point.
Surprising to you? Would you want your Christian family member to marry a Muslim? Would you want your sister or your daughter or your mother to be married to a Muslim? No, maybe you would. That's fine. We don't want our women marrying non-Muslim men. If a Christian or
But the problem is you say Muslim men can marry Christian women. Like, it's like, okay, you're admitting there's discrimination and there's rules for me, but not for thee.
Jewish woman would like to marry a Muslim man, under certain conditions that's allowed. Well, if they're actually practicing, that's allowed. If not, then no, they're not. And in that case, Muslim men would be forbidden from marrying the Christian or Jewish women. And this is allowed because generally in Islam, the man is seen as the head of the household and the one who dictates the household and its religion as well. Just like in Islam, the government is dictating an Islamic society. And that's not surprising for an Islamic society. That might be surprising if someone's a secular liberal like yourself, but that wouldn't be surprising in a country based on a particular religion.
I think we're just going to start calling him a jihadi, because he keeps calling us secular liberals, even though we're not. So you're a jihadi now. Is fair? Can we call you that? Because you just want to keep misrepresenting and attacking us. I know you guys have that Muslim superiority complex where you get to insult and demean others, misrepresent them, but then you guys throw a hissy fit when anyone does it to you. So can we just call you a jihadi now? Should we do a vote? Should we do a poll in the chat?
Yeah, I mean, so are you saying that like it's a good thing that the man of the house dictates the religion of the house, and the woman and the children are stripped of their freedom and intellectual freedom to worship and know God? Like, is that a good thing?
I don't know. Good question.
I have
Again,
all
you would
these
have to
questions,
demonstrate-
and
I'm
I just
sorry, go
have I have a gut feeling that these people just would never actually admit that that's a good thing.
Why
Maybe some.
secularism is the default and is correct.
Our testimony carries less weight in court than the testimony from Muslims.
Notice how the point says often, but he skipped over that word and just said that the testimony of non-Muslims carry less weight. This is not true. Firstly, Islam demands that Muslims speak the truth, even if it's against themselves, their family, the rich, the powerful, and so on and so forth. And the only time where their testimony is seen as less is in cases of capital punishment, where there is
Okay, he said I was wrong, then he said I was right. Yeah, this is not true. You guys don't carry less weight. Well, in some cases it does.
Why does it carry less weight in these instances?
Because
Is
Muslims
there
are
a logic
superior.
to that?
I don't know. They just know Muslims are superior.
there is severe punishment at play. So if they're trying to accuse a Muslim of a grand crime, then we need more than just their testimony. And in every case, testimony depends very, very strongly on their character, their conduct, their reputation, and other things. In other cases, like civil disputes, their testimony is seen as equal as anyone else. And there's a very famous case when Ali, the cousin of the Prophet, alayhi salam,
All right, I'm going to skip over this case because it's not relevant to the points we need to get to. Let's just get back to that. Again, he already admitted. But anyway, let's get back.
vehicle in a sense.
And sometimes are forced to wear certain clothing to represent our submissive status.
Hold up. I need to back up a little bit because he also, I want to cover this section as well about the carrying of horses or carrying weapons and
A
horses.
non-Muslim, I think it was a Jew in particular, and he sided with the Jewish person. And the Jewish person actually ended up accepting Islam because of the justice that they saw, because they thought the Muslim would just rule in favor of the Muslim. And this is what Muslims aspire to be like. This is what Muslims are supposed to be like. Any instance where this is not being upheld, where justice and truth is not being upheld, is in spite of Islam, because we're commanded directly to speak the truth and to be just and fair.
And we are forbidden from riding horses, carrying weapons.
Next, yeah, non-Muslims are forbidden from riding horses and carrying weapons, because this would be the equivalent of like holding an AR and walking around the streets. You're not allowed to carry military weapons or ride a military vehicle. Horses were seen as military vehicles and as a weapon in a way. But this is actually backed up in the Quran, where Allah says to prepare against the enemies of Islam, horses and military weapons and so on and so forth, to strike fear into them, just to let them know that we're strong. So according to the Quran,
That's right, folks. When Muslims are in charge, they want you subjugated, humiliated, and afraid and powerless. But it'd be better to live under their rule, apparently. Like, this guy's just admitting I'm right about all this stuff.
Can we just flip the logic now again?
Mhm.
Hey guys, we're in a Western civilization that's that's predominantly has Christian values. Muslims, you have to turn in. You can't conceal carry. You can't protect yourself.
Could you imagine that kind of law? Like, if we just passed in the U.S., Christians are allowed to carry guns, but Muslims are not.
I'm hearing Muslims and blue-haired liberals freaking out right now. And
But
you
that's-
should freak out, because that's a ridiculous law, and I would not support it.
Like, they're literally saying they want Christians powerless in their societies. They can't have guns. They can't defend themselves. And you're telling me that Islam is not going to lead to a superiority complex? If you're living in a world like that and you're a Muslim and you have nefarious thoughts, what houses are you going to rob? You're going to go after the Christians because they're weak and
Mhm.
powerless. They can't defend themselves. You're setting up a society that is going to lead to more violence against the minorities in your culture. And you're trying to tell us the world will be better with Islam? Where, yeah, we have Christians in our society and we don't have equal rights for them. They need to be subjugated, humiliated, powerless, and afraid. Like, that's what you're now saying, that this is what Islam is going to lead to. Are you kidding me? How does Islam not create a superiority complex? Tell me.
It's only a superiority complex if you're not better than the people you feel superior to. Mike.
Lo and
So-
behold, let's get to that section.
justified in their rejection of the Quran.
Jews and Christians are the worst of creatures.
It doesn't say Jews and Christians are the worst of people. It says the people who disbelieve from the people of the book and the polytheists are the worst of creatures, meaning people who reject Islam are the worst for understanding Islam and then rejecting it. It's not
Yeah, Jew, what? Like,
Are Jews and Christians not that?
So notice he says, well, maybe we understand it, but still reject it. So either we're evil or we're stupid because we reject it because we don't understand it. So yes, Islam creates a superiority complex in Muslims where they look at everyone else and go, we're the best of people Allah has raised up. And all those other people, they're either stupid or they're evil. Meanwhile, what does the Bible say? Pray for your enemies. You're going to be persecuted. No, be at peace with all the people around you. Christ died for all. You know, you're only saved by grace, not because there's anything special about you. Like,
I was reading through Acts. I was reading through Acts on Sunday after church, and I was really taken aback even when Stephen was getting stoned because his dying breath was, Lord, do not hold this sin against them. Contrast that with the ethics of Islam.
Exactly. It's wild, man. It's wild. I can't imagine why Christianity creates better societies. I can't. I mean, one religion preaches peace and love, and another says you're special, and everyone who's not is the worst of creatures. Like, how is your religion not going to lead to a superiority complex? You're basically admitting we're right. And what is that going to lead to? Discrimination, persecution, more violence. You're making the argument for us now, man. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, I should have prepped some psychological studies actually now that I'm thinking about this point. Because also, if you have a superiority complex, that actually makes it even easier to dehumanize and objectify other people.
Exactly.
Which then also paves the way for more violence because it's easier to harm people that you dehumanize and objectify.
Yeah, and that's what's going on again and again. So we have to be looked at as either really dumb or really evil, according to this guy. And then we're allowed to be totally discriminated against. We can't have weapons. We have to be powerless in the society. We have to pay a humiliating tax. I mean, like, you're making the case for us as to why Islam creates inferior civilizations and cultures. None of this would lead to good results. And we're going to get into that coming up here because we're going to talk about a study that he forgot a key part of that study.
Polytheists are the worst of creatures, meaning people who reject Islam are the worst for understanding Islam and then rejecting it. It's not that Jews and Christians and polytheists are inherently evil. It's when they receive the truth of Islam from God, they understand it, but then reject it anyways. That's what it means to be a kafir. That's what it means to disbelieve. Not any Jew or Christian or polytheist wholesale.
And to not take them as friends and allies.
Yeah, it says don't take them as guardians because they're guardians of each other. And you can see this, for example, like with Israel and America. They're guardians of each other and would not hesitate to stomp on any Muslim or any Muslim country. It's essentially saying you can only really trust Muslims. And I don't know why you would disagree.
Bro, think of what he just said and how this does not create a superiority complex. This does not create suspicion in discrimination for other people when you're told you can really only trust Muslims and all those other people are out to get you.
If you have a worldview where your identity is in such a place that you cannot trust anybody other than your in-group, that is going to lead to more violence and harm and bad societies and outlooks. Like, I don't even have I feel like I don't even need to cite studies for that. That should be just very intuitive to understand. I can if needed, but like, seriously?
He's just biting the bullet on this. I mean, like, do you guys need any more evidence as to why we should never let Islam get power? I'm just going to play these clips of this guy going, yeah, you're right. We're going to discriminate against you guys. And we do look at you as inferior. And, you're either really dumb or really evil. And we can't trust you also. But guys, as Muslims, we know it'd be better if we had all the power and you just lived under us as your protectors. Like, thanks for making the case for us. Never let Islam get any power. Like, never. Now I know why they always vote Democrat in this country, because they want to take our guns away. Like,
methodological asymmetry, because whereas they may define a Muslim majority country doing something bad as related to Islam, they don't define a Christian majority.
That a higher percentage of
So they make up for it here. But of course, you don't include that point because any point that makes Islam look good doesn't work.
I went ahead a little too far. Let me just go back so to make sure we get all the context in here. I'm going to go back to 3940, which is where I was. I don't know why I jumped ahead there.
basically like saying, hey, they're not secular. And again, for like the 50th time, you need to demonstrate why secular values are true and correct and not Islamic values.
Well,
and the study you quoted also
I wouldn't, because I'm a Christian. So nice straw man.
mentions Islamic groups engage in the lowest levels of economic discrimination. So where Muslim countries may fall short here, they make up for it here. But of course, you don't include that point, because any point that makes Islam look good doesn't work well for your argument, which is Islam ruins society.
The same authors note in their book that a higher percentage of Muslims and the adoption of Sharia law is associated with higher social restrictions, whereas a higher percentage of Christians is associated with less social restrictions and more freedom.
Again, you need to demonstrate why less restrictions and more social freedom is correct. You just, again, presupposing your secular liberal values. I also need to point
All right,
Why?
well, let's stop.
Okay, I'm sorry. Why
ahead.
is this guy? Why? Oh man. Okay, sorry. I'm
No, go ahead. I'm
gonna
get
be
the
nice. I'm
paper
gonna
up
be
on
nice.
this side.
No, I just want to be nice. Rami, why do you just get to presuppose your Islamic values, but we don't get to presuppose Western values? Why don't we just meet in the middle? Conditional on Western values being true, Islam is going to destroy the world. Conditional on Islamic values being true, it sounds like you still agree that Islam is going to destroy the world, but it's a good thing because Islamic values like that. I don't know how you can get out of that reduction out of this at the end of the day.
I'm also confused where he says the paper I just cited refers to them engaging in less as economic discrimination. He just sort of read it, but didn't cite it. So maybe I'm missing something here, but let me pull up the paper from Grimm and Finke here so you can see what I'm talking about. Because I couldn't find that in there. So maybe he's referring to something else. He didn't really put anything up on the screen. I don't want to accuse him of anything, but I'm not seeing what he's referring to. But let me just pull the paper up here. So again, religious persecution in cross-national contexts, classic civilizations, or regulated religious economies. This is the paper I cited. Let's just scroll down here. Persecution of more than 1,000 persons is present in 40% of Muslim majority countries compared to 3.9% of Christian majority countries. What else do they say? Here's a very important point. The adoption of religious law and the percent Muslim in a country are positively associated with social regulation of religion. Percent Christian, however, is negatively associated with government regulation of religion. As expected, the longevity of democracy and economic strength are negatively associated with government regulation. Their addition to the model decreases the relative strength of percent Christian from negative 0.35 in model A to negative 0.26 in this model. This is logical given that percent Christian is positively correlated with these variables. So why are our values better? They lead to more economic strength. There's one reason right there. There's a good reason in the very paper that I was referring to. And I'm trying to find the point he's referring to, economic discrimination. I'm not sure where that's coming from. Maybe it's in the book, but he needs to back that up. I didn't find it anywhere. But I mean, I might be missing something. I'll admit it. But again, lot
if
of
he's
problems.
listening, Rami, clarification would be great, man.
Yeah, I want to know. I was trying to find in that paper because that's the one I was referring to. Not sure where that's coming from. But also, let me also put up another slide I want to show. This was in my debate with Junior. Because I anticipate, did I put up the wrong slides? Yeah, hold up. I anticipated this objection when I was debating Junior on this issue. I was anticipating that it was going to be something like this. So here we go. Okay. I did have the right slides up. Okay. So there was a bunch of papers I did cite on this in there. On this. When we have more freedom, more liberty, more democracy, you get all sorts of really positive results, like more economic progress, overall better health of a society. These are the papers. So yes, our values do lead to better results, less violence, more economic progress, better health outcomes for societies at large. Democracy does matter. So there's a reason Islamic civilizations are inferior, and he's endorsing those. He's endorsing the values where we discriminate against Jews and Christians. He's endorsing that kind of worldview. And yet, if you actually go into the research like these papers, you'll see that leads to negative consequences. So don't have time to really get into it, but if you guys want, there are the papers. You can read them. I have them all downloaded. Not sure what he would say to that, but yeah, there's a problem there. Let's get to some super chats really fast and we'll jump back in. Here we are. Do you still plan on making a video on transgenderism? Yeah, eventually. In Ottoman times, when the jizya tax was paid, the market was flooded with goods Christians sold at a loss to cover burden. Those that failed to pay had corporal punishment. Yeah, the Ottoman Empire was really harsh to Jews and Christians. Very, very horrible regime to live under.
I haven't looked into all the details. I know that that's the general truth, but I haven't looked at all the details about it yet. So,
can you guys challenge that money dude to debate Allah's 99 attributes or Tawheed? I know he will accept. LOL. Then I need you to hit that debate stage.
who's the money dude?
Talk about the money Muslim, that Canyon Mibs guy. That's another. He calls himself the money Muslim. I don't think he debates. So I don't know.
No, honestly, it's well, Junior and I will have a debate on whether or not the Trinity was invented at Nicaea or not. But after the Dawa implosion episode that happened, it opened my eyes to, I'll just say, the chasm of Islamic analytic theology that I didn't know existed. So I want to get into that because I actually really like that kind of stuff. And I really want to know what the metaphysical necessity is of Allah having a shin or whatever it is. How they explain that.
Says the worst of creatures, so technically we're beneath the serpent. Yeah, that's the way Islam creates this superiority complex. What's your take on Ephesians 5:4? No zut jokes. What do you mean? What's my take on it? How does that relate to the zut? Let there be no filthiness, nor foolish talk, nor crude joking, which are out of place, but instead let there be thanksgiving.
That's based.
Yeah. That does not mean no joking at all. He's talking about very specific things. Foolish talk, filthiness, crude joking. But I mean, this is the same guy who said he wishes his opponents would emasculate themselves. Because like there's nothing wrong with making jokes or insulting as long as it's not crude, I guess you could say. And that then becomes you have to use discernment to know.
Even you can actually be pretty upfront and crude if it's called for. I previously I was talking about in Acts when Stephen is getting stoned, and before he gets stoned, he says like the worst thing you could ever say to a Jew. He says that their hearts are uncircumcised. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes it's called for. You get the point. I'm not gonna.
I get you. Let's get back to this video.
To point out a methodological asymmetry between inspiring philosophy and a lot of the authors of this study. And I would even say some of the authors have this methodological asymmetry because whereas they may define a Muslim majority country doing something bad as related to Islam, they don't define a Christian majority country doing something bad as related to Christianity. For example, when a country like America bombs Iraq and Syria and Libya and Afghanistan and multiple Muslim majority countries, killing millions, displacing millions of innocent men, women, and children, that's not seen as something that's tied to Christianity. But when inspiring philosophy speaks about Muslim majority countries doing bad things, he ties it directly to Islam. This is a methodological asymmetry. He's not being consistent and he is basically special pleading. And then,
well, that would only be the case if you were taking me out of context, because that's what you're doing. No, the reason why I can do that is because I cited all the research showing there was a positive association, a link there with Islam after other variables are controlled for. Guess what? You can't do that with Christianity. And you even cited Monica Duffy-Toft, Jonathan Fox, who were pointing that out. Davis Brown as well. What's chapter 4 of this book called, Than? Do you know?
No, I don't.
The restrictive war ethic in Christianity. That's why we don't have the same war ethic. So when wars are happening because of Western countries, it's not because of Christianity. That's not a motivating factor. Like Islam is one of the motivating factors. That's how I'm able to do that. So notice the difference. I cited multivariable analysis showing a link. Then I moved on to the next section showing how that link is tied to Islam. Then I move on to the third section where I show the historical and the scriptural basis for it. So if anyone's not taking things in context, it'd be you, sir, not me. I cited a lot of research to back that up, and you unfortunately skipped over it. So likewise, we're just going to try to hit your main points, not respond to every single line.
Oil again? I doubt it.
People of the book, who are supposed to be protected according to the Quran and Islamic tradition, experience greater levels of discrimination than Orthodox Muslim minorities.
At least here he quotes the part where they say that the aggressors are doing this in spite of the teachings of Islam. The quote literally says people of the book are supposed to be protected in Islam. So our rules
Exactly. And there's a problem there because in Islam you have contradictory teachings. That's the point I'm trying to make.
dictate that we protect them, meaning that the people who are transgressing against them or persecuting them or discriminating against them are doing this in spite of Islam. And it's funny because this again points out an inconsistency with Inspiring Philosophy's methods. Because remember how we got to this point. He transitioned to this point by saying there are Muslim rules against Christians and Jews. And because of these rules, it's no surprise we see persecution and discrimination. And then he quotes a study that specifically says in Islam, in Islamic law, people of the book, Jews and Christians, are protected. And so because now...
Okay, but here's the problem. We just got done. You just got done going over a section saying we are not equal under Islam. There are many ways you are supposed to discriminate against us, and that we are the worst of creatures, meaning we're either evil or incredibly stupid. And you're surprised that discrimination happens in Islam? This is something that just shows Islam is contradictory. You're told to protect us, but you're also told us to treat us like inferior. Like that's the point I'm trying to make here. Islam says you were supposed to be protected, but then you treat us inferior. Surprise, surprise, what's going to happen? Discrimination and persecution. How do you not see that?
This is why I'm like still trying to rack my... He seems like a really nice guy and I want to steel man him, but like there's so many times where he makes the argument for us.
Exactly. I mean, so he goes on to make the point that if they would implement Islam correctly, there wouldn't be this kind of persecution, which is just, again, saying, well, that's not real socialism. Our point is this stuff is going to flow out of Islam because of those teachings you agreed existed. Yeah, you're not supposed to persecute us, but that's going to happen because of other teachings in Islam that lead to this contradictory worldview where you can say, yeah, we're supposed to protect you guys, but we're also supposed to treat you inferior and look down upon you and discriminate against you. And I wonder why persecution happens when Christians are told to evangelize and spread our religion, and you're told, no, you're not allowed to do that. You're going to create more violence. If we cannot judge Islam by what it creates compared to the societies Christianity creates, or even what secularism creates, then we cannot judge real Islam because real Islam doesn't exist. If every time something in Islamic society forms and bad things happen and you say that's not real Islam, then there is no such thing as real Islam. It cannot manifest in reality for the same reason communism doesn't exist in reality. It always manifests in ways it was never intended to. And Islam has very similar problems.
Has there ever been a society that was actually real Islam?
Good question. Good question. All right, let's move on ahead. I have a couple more time markers to do, and then we're not going to do much of the ending part because a lot of the stuff I say at the end of my video is contingent on the earlier parts in the video, which we've already thoroughly addressed. So let's just get back into it. So this is the part where I'm pointing out that Christianity has something called the separation of church and state, which actually led to a lot of really good results. And he's going to say that's secularism because he doesn't understand what Christianity teaches. God, the things that are God's. This fostered the idea that the spiritual and the worldly powers can be separate. The priest can focus on spiritual matters, and the officials in government can focus on earthly matters.
Because Islam lacks secularism. That's why. And again, he's presupposing secularism is correct and is best. And not only that,
Guys, he thinks separation of church and state is just secularism. What?
This happened way before the secular movement. The early church talked about this. You have this in Augustine. I mean,
yeah, you have it developing through the Christian. This is something Tom Holland talks about in Dominion. Christianity, he says Christianity was like a depth charge. It took time for these ideas to be fully understood in the culture and implemented. And you have render to Caesar the things that are Caesar. That goes through Augustine's City of God, and then it starts to manifest more in the reformers, like the Augsburg Confession. And then it grows into what it is now. So that's not secularism. That is something that is also inherent in Christianity that comes out of our tradition that secularism uses and took from us and bastardizes it and makes it and corrupts it in a lot of ways.
Yep.
But he thinks separation of church and state is just secular. What?
So far, what I'm getting from this is anytime we see something that I think people can intuitively grasp as a good thing. He says that's secular liberal values. Islamic values don't like this. And every single time he does this, by the way, he's painting this picture of what an Islamic society looks like, which is a society that is what you are going to argue in this video is bad and will destroy the world.
Mm-hmm.
You're agreeing with us. The only thing that you're disagreeing on is what's good or bad. Well, congrats. We're in a meta-ethical question and a meta-normative question. That's fine. Then it just means you're agreeing with the sociology and you disagree with the axiology. Fine. That's an easy discussion to have, man.
Yep.
He's almost using secularism as a positive point for Christianity, which is laughable. Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's and render unto God what is God. Secularism did not come out of Christianity. Secularism came out in spite of Christianity. Secularism was created to counter the problems that the Christian world brought. And just
What problems? What?
And what is
think
your
about
evidence
this. If
for
that
this?
verse promotes
What's that?
What is his evidence for that?
Yeah, I mean, I've had several debates arguing secularism creates so many problems that Christianity fixes.
We've
talking
also covered the fact that secularism was born out of like secular liberal values, whatever you want to label these things, right? Was born out of Christianity and bastardized.
Bastardized is the key word there. There's an association fallacy often committed by Muslims when they look at Christians and they accuse us of being secular because there's overlap, but it's because they bastardize a lot of the values that we had. And they took what they wanted and tried to build a whole worldview without its necessary foundations.
world brought. And just think about this. If that verse promotes secularism, why did it take the church 1,300 years to realize that? Why did it take them 1,300 years to realize that Jesus is teaching secularism?
He's not. So this is a straw man, but you need to read Tom Holland's book, Dominion, man. You don't know the history here.
For hundreds of years, Christian empires had kings that ruled by the divine right. And this came from...
Yeah, okay. Again, this is just easily debunked by Tom Holland. I'm going to jump ahead now to the next section.
Yeah, we've covered this so many times.
A lot of this is in this section we've already covered.
You know, wait. Actually, this is really ironic too, because he's talking about how we're like using secular liberal values. Well, dude, you're using an atheist argument.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we hear from atheists all the time. So you're using secular values right now, dude, and you're a Muslim.
All right. Let's get to the studies on polygyny, because I'm going to pull one of them up.
Polygyny. This is the practice of one man marrying multiple women, which Islam sanctions. Research has pointed out that this practice is extremely harmful to women and their offspring.
So now we start talking about polygyny, which God allows and actually gives rules in regards to in the Old Testament. So did Jesus actually allow for a system that is inherently bad and leads to the downfall of society? Well, let's talk about...
We have pointed out several times there's a chapter in the Bible called Matthew 19, where Jesus says the law of divorce was given because your hearts were hard. The Mosaic law was not we have an entire video called The Imperfect Mosaic Law. We address objections to this, point out the Mosaic law was a stepping stone to something better. And by the way, if you read Angelo Tosado, he points out that Leviticus 18:18 actually outlaws polygamy. The regulations of it in the Torah are sort of like the regulations on gambling in today's society. It's not that we're encouraging it. We're trying to make it so that it's less harmful. That's the same with the laws of polygyny in the Old Testament. Meanwhile, Leviticus 18:18 uses an idiom to say, don't marry a woman and another. As Angelo Tosado has pointed out, Paul Copan as well, in his book, Is God a Moral Monster? So yeah, God never actually endorses polygamy. He allows it like he allowed divorce, like he allowed slavery temporarily.
Talk about the studies. Neither study specifically looks at Islamic polygyny and it being done in accordance with Islamic law.
That doesn't change the fact that polygyny is harmful, and when you have a religion that allows for it, it's going to lead to harm. Man, and by the way, who do you think they were studying? They were studying Bedouin tribes, for example. That was a large part of the sample. I wonder what religion they're a part of.
This is important because Islam only allows polygyny if the man can afford it and if he could be equal with his time and his resources between all his wives. And
okay, who decides that? The man does. If he decides he's given a woman, one of his wives enough time, I guess he's good to go then.
He must not be inclining towards one wife over the other. Also, funny enough, the study on the left says, interestingly, compared with women in monogamous marriage, the present meta-analysis revealed that women in polygynous marriages had higher self-esteem, life satisfaction, and superior family function.
Gee, how do you measure those things? You ask them.
Yeah.
You cannot measure self-esteem. You ask them. Let's go look at it, because this is something I've seen Muslims bring up before. Did I pull up the right paper? Yeah. Okay. Here's what we see in why they're reporting that, because this is explained. And I pointed this out when Melissa Doherty interviewed me on this, because we brought up the study. Additionally, this collectivity may serve as a buffer against the detrimental influences of polygyny and its peculiar features. The family functioning of women in polygamous marriages is enhanced as women in these communities consider their communities, families, and group identities. Persons conceal their personal goals, and their behavior is governed by their admiration, dedication, and compliance to the systems of tribe, the extended family, and the principles that their traditional culture and religion implement. Consequently, this kind of suppression or concealment of personal identity has been shown to give rise to mental health issues. I wonder why these women are reporting higher levels of self-esteem. They're not allowed to have any personal self-esteem. It's all about how the community is doing, how the community is feeling. So they're going to report based on what the community is telling them to feel, not what they're actually feeling. Like, just read the study in context, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, all these mental health issues are coming from polygyny. And yet your religion allows for it. So you're allowing for a religion that's going to lead to a lot of unnecessary harm to women. Whereas Christianity, because of places like 1 Corinthians 7, Leviticus 18:18, Matthew 19, outlaws polygyny. 1 Timothy 3 as well. So yeah, still the mental health issues, even though they're reporting they have high self-esteem. Gee, I wonder if that's good. If someone with all these mental health issues is saying, I have great quality of life, I have such high self-esteem, are you going to believe them?
I'm having flashbacks to when we responded to Rationality Rules, and he was using the Nordic countries. And it's like, yeah, we're all happy, but we're all, using anxiety and depression meds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Let's get to this section I cover on how polygyny also causes societies to deteriorate. And there's a pretty obvious reason why, which I appreciate him covering. I don't think his response really gets to it, though.
To turn to violence and crime.
Now here he's trying to demonstrate that polygyny is harmful to society because the higher class of men marry more women, the lower class don't have as many women, and this leads to sexual frustration and then inevitably some kind of violence.
Yeah, that's basically it. When you, where does my chart at? Here it is. Just back up a little bit here. So this is the chart I used.
Is it just sexual frustration that causes that, though? Like, I can imagine if I wasn't married, I'd be a hooligan just because I wouldn't have anything better to do.
No, it's not just sexual frustration. It's lack of family. Men are not directing their attention to raising families and wives, so they direct it elsewhere. So it's lack of community, lack of family, sexual frustration. It's a lot of different factors. It's not just lack of sex. No.
He takes a wife from another man. Young unmarried men with no future or prospect of a family are the most likely to turn to violence and crime.
Now here he's trying to demonstrate that polygyny is harmful to society because the higher class of men marry more women, the lower class don't have as many women, and this leads to sexual frustration and then inevitably some kind of violence perpetrated by these young men who cannot get married. Now, as far as I could see, he didn't provide actual evidence for that conclusion. He kind of deduces this from differing factors.
No, I literally provided a ton of evidence for that. What are you talking about, man? Man. Let me go back to my slides from the junior debate. Hang on. Actually, I closed them. Man. No, why are they not coming up? Anyway, let me try again. Yeah, here they are. These are in the video. You can go watch the video and you can see me go through these kinds of things. So, for example, let's go to the section down here on polygyny. Okay, I cited these ones. Then I also went down and I cited all sorts of other stuff. Hold on, wrong slides again. Getting myself confused.
Amateur hour. Look at this
amateur
guy,
hour here. Yes.
Laugh at him.
Oh, yes. That's what happens when you do stuff live, folks. You make mistakes like your AP or something. So let me go down my polygyny section here. So you can see I use the same chart I have here. And then you go, I cited this book in the video. I cited this book in the video. I cited this book. This study, I mean, I cited a bunch. I relied heavily on this book here. They note that, polygyny reduces civil rights, political liberties. If you don't believe me, just the video's linked below. You see me cite all this research. He's being very disingenuous, saying I didn't cite research when I cited a ton of research to support this argument. So, I'm not sure what he's getting at there. That's just completely incorrect.
But again, you face the problem of if polygyny is inherently bad and bad for society, then God commanded something that's bad for society and your tradition and your beliefs.
Oh, for the love of God, read 1 Corinthians 7, 1 Timothy 3, Matthew 19.
Yep.
Oh my God. All right, move ahead a little bit here.
In nearly all.
Okay, so here's a quote I have in this on the whole polygyny stuff. I'll play it back. I'm going to go back a little bit so we can hear me say it, and then we will jump into it, because this is going to be kind of ironic.
And the promise of a large harem of virgins in heaven that motivate many young Muslim men to commit suicide bombings. Consistent with this explanation, all studies of suicide bombers indicate that they are significantly younger than not only the Muslim population in general, but other non-suicidal members of their own extreme political organizations, like Hamas and Hezbollah. And nearly all suicide bombers are single.
So this is the important. It's polygyny and the promise of large harems of virgins in heaven that motivate many young Muslim men. So again, it's another motivating factor that leads to more violence and breakdown. And the reasoning is not complicated. When you have a bunch of unmarried men because the men on top have taken multiple wives, these young men, there are no wives because humans produce roughly 50-50 men and women in societies. Those young, poor men join terrorist groups.
Mm-hmm.
They commit suicide bombings because they want what the rich and the powerful elite have. There's a reason ancient civilizations engaged in a lot of war, because the elites had large harems. They took all these women and then they sent the young men to die in wars. Polygyny just leads to more violence. This is just a basic fact. I don't know why anyone is disputing this. When you have a society, the only time it wouldn't lead to more violence is if you had a society where there was more women. But if you have a society that's 50-50, it's going to cause more violence if you have polygyny.
Just a quick note on this. All I'm going to say is that this is not a study. This is an opinion piece published in a magazine. It's not a peer-reviewed study. And you not mentioning this and quoting it as if it is a study, like some of the other studies you mentioned, I believe is a bit disingenuous.
It's a bit disingenuous, Stan, that I cited 2 expert psychologists and their opinions.
Yep.
Actual experts. But let's contrast that with something he's about to say here. This is kind of funny.
Act as warlords. And Michael Hart, in his book The 100, where he ranks the top 100 most influential people throughout history, actually cites the fact that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was a military commander and leader as one of the reasons why he was so influential. And mind you, he ranked him #1 on the list over Jesus and over Paul, peace be upon him.
Okay, Muslims, you got to stop citing Michael Hart. Michael Hart was a white nationalist, not a historian. Didn't know what he was talking about. And by the way, he put Muhammad at the top because he thought Muhammad was able to influence a lot of low IQ people. He believed Muhammad changed the course of history by influencing low IQ groups. But he can cite Michael Hart, but I can't cite 2 actual experts in psychology about how polygyny in Islam leads to more harm and violence. Like, bro, come on.
It's really ironic.
Oh, it's super ironic. The only other thing we're going to address is I'm going to get to this section on Tom Holland. So,
yeah. While you're finding that, why? Not only is it bad that you cited the opinion of 2 experts, but he's not an expert and he's giving his opinion this whole entire time with no evidence half the time.
True.
That's pretty disingenuous, man.
Pretty disingenuous indeed. Here we are.
From the Hindu Kush, they demanded an annual tribute of apparently 1,000 of their most beautiful boys, each one holding in his hands a golden cup, a delicious taste for Muslims of the delights of paradise.
Inspiring Philosophy references the work of Tom Holland multiple times towards the end of the video, but he doesn't mention that Tom Holland has no formal training in history or in the Islamic studies or study of any aspect of Islam, let alone Islamic history. He's quite literally just a guy who wrote a book. And the worst part is he didn't even use Islamic sources. He relied basically exclusively on non-Muslim sources. And he also leans heavily on revisionist scholars from like the 80s who had very outdated views, now outdated views on.
Sir, you're not refuting the point. You're just poisoning the well. This is a genetic fallacy. Like, none of this means notice he doesn't even refute the point. Like, Tom Holland's actually right about the history here. That actually did happen. They demanded all these boys because it was a delicious taste of paradise. So you cannot refute
Can we
Tom
just
Holland
use
by
that
just
same
attacking
logic
him.
on him? Can we just use the same logic on him? Hey, Rami, you're not an expert. You have no formal training here.
Very
So
true,
this whole entire response video you've used is pointless.
There we go. Yep. Good point. Now, also, Tom Holland is a researcher at University of Buckingham. His books have been critically acclaimed. By all metrics, he's an historian, and he's treated as one by PhD historians. So don't know what you're referring to. Just doing this doesn't actually refute his points either way. And by the way, if you're going to cite Michael Hart, I don't want to ever hear you complain about a source. Muslims cite Michael Hart all the time. And every time I see a Muslim citing Michael Hart, we always do this. Oh my gosh, you guys are so bad at this. Citing a white nationalist with no historical training, and then you're complaining about us citing Tom Holland, whose books are endorsed by like so many PhD historians. Unbelievable, man. Unbelievable double standards. But he's talking about the Muslim superiority complex throughout his video. What do you expect? What do you expect?
You have to cite Muslim scholars because Muslims are superior.
Oh, and by the way, the reason why Tom Holland doesn't cite Islamic sources in his book is because he opens the book by saying, scholars note your sources, your hadith collections are completely total garbage. They're unreliable. We can't use your sources because they're so bad. And that is what the consensus of critical scholars will say now. The hadith collections are garbage. Joshua Little, Sean Anthony, all these guys are pointing this out. So why doesn't Tom Holland use Islamic sources? You can't trust them because they're just bad. I don't know what to do, man. I was like,
yeah,
get better. I mean, hadith science is garbage. Get better sources, I guess, and then maybe we'll use them. So anyway, let's go through some super chats here. Oh wait, I already checked my poll. I completely forgot about the poll we did. Yes. The poll says, should we call this guy jihadi if he keeps calling us secularists? 86% say yes. Therefore, he's a jihadi now. The people have spoken. Is it a fair representation of what he believes? No. But he's a jihadi now because we're going to use his methods, his methodology.
Amen, brother.
I meant Junior, monkey dude. Hello, I'm glad Than can't wait. Oh, wait. Junior. Who's Junior? What is going on?
Which monkey dude?
You don't know what Junior did?
No.
Oh man, we're gonna have to play that.
Oh no.
All right.
Look, hey.
So wait.
I actually really enjoyed my time with Junior when he was on.
Wait, hold on. Junior and Danny Philtalk are debating you?
No. Monkey Boy's an atheist TikToker.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I got confused there. I thought that was the same. I thought that was the same thing. I meant excuse me. Okay. I guess I should find I got confused there for a second. I was like, holy crap. I thought Junior and Danny Philtalk were going to do a debate together for a second. I was like, no, don't do that. I got to find the monkey thing for you. So here.
Wait, what did you do?
I'll show you. We'll close out with that. Let's go through these super chats. Thank you, David, for the very generous super chat. God bless.
I'm
really appreciate that. I'd argue that giving all people the freedom to choose God without coercion is good. Yeah, I absolutely agree. And that's the problem. Islam doesn't force you to accept Islam, but it really coerces you by setting all these restrictions on other religions in all sorts of horrible ways. You know, it's just ridiculous. Let me find it here. I have to look in the transcript for monkey.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes, Than.
I see people talking about it in the chat, and I'm
If I gathered some fully cited descriptions of hardship jizya imposed on Christians and the details of the punishment inflicted on non-payers and email it to you, would you use it against these arguments? Some fully cited descriptions of hard jizya imposed on Christians and the details. Yes, please email those to me. Yes. Email them.
Yeah.
Michael@inspiringphilosophy.com. No, sure. Yeah, absolutely. I'll take a look and see what it says.
And Than.
I meant arguments like these, not him specifically. All right, let me see if I can find this. Yeah, I think I found it here.
Oh, man.
Pull up this lovely Junior episode for Than here.
Go ahead, leave so I can actually have a conversation with a actual human being, not a monkey who went to Israel and got fed bananas by Netanyahu. If you're gonna eat bananas from Netanyahu, at least enjoy it. At least convert to Judaism. At least suck his dick.
Oh my gosh, Junior. No, I have to edit that part out. But then Junior left, and he came back and did this.
There, I put up my camera. As soon as I put up my camera, people from the Jordanian Waqf, whom Israel authorized to actually have control over the place, came over to me and said, "Hey, no filming, no filming. Are you Muslim? Are you Muslim? No filming." I was like, what do you mean no filming? There's no such rule, man. I can just film here. Like, no Muslim, only Muslim, only Muslims, only Muslims. Subscribe to only Muslims. So they said only Muslims can film. So
Keep
we had a
watching.
big argument, and eventually some security guy from the Jordanian Waqf, who is appointed by Israel as authority over who can and cannot approach the Golden Dome and the Al-Aqsa Mosque, forced me to go away and to dismantle my camera and to walk away. So Junior here says that Israel can do whatever they want. They threaten the world.
Are you happy you now have that in your brain? You happy now you saw that?
But
Welcome to Dawa.
I,
Welcome to Dawa, Than.
I wonder what he's going to do in our in-person debate.
Oh, it's going to be amazing. Absolutely amazing. I can't wait. You excited? Should be. Should be super excited. Anyway,
He was really nice to me when we interacted. So hopefully he keeps that up with me, man.
let's just
We'll
hope
see.
he doesn't bring any stuffed animals, is all I'm saying. So anyway, overall, the video response, not that good. Didn't even deal with the main section of my video. And let me just go to the video here, because it's important that we point this out. Like, the actual video itself has a whole section where I cover a lot more stuff in depth
Yeah.
onto why I'm making these issues. Chapter markers, I think, were auto-generated. I did not choose them. But I mean, I covered a lot more stuff in terms of like what is sort of going on here. I cited Davis Brown's book a lot more. Oh, wait. Here's where I pointed out in my video those papers I cited. He says I never demonstrated my secular liberal values are good.
You to do their bidding without the state working or coercing for a particular religion. This allows religious freedom, which has been associated with positive benefits like better quality of life and economic prosperity.
So, Rami, I did actually cite research to support why things like these are good when I went into that kind of stuff. So I'm not sure what you're getting at. But again, also cited Davis Brown's book here. See? More of that. Okay, all this stuff was skipped over. This is some of the most important stuff right here, where I was explaining why Islam is associated with all these negative effects, and that was just completely ignored. So my argument was not even refuted. It wasn't even remotely touched. He just tried to chip away at some of the data, and he didn't actually understand that just because you're citing someone's data, that doesn't mean you have to agree with all of their opinions. So once again, which society would you rather live in? An Islamic one or a Christian one? It's obviously the Christian ones. Islam is not good for humanity. Christianity is far better.
Based.
Super based. Anyway, we'll close this out. This stream is going to end, and you're going to immediately go to David Wood's stream. We're going to redirect everyone there. So just keep watching to the end, and you'll just be redirected there. No need to jump over there. That's where you're going to go. So anyway, I'm going to get some dinner. I'll talk to you guys later. We'll do a call-in stream like Thursday or something, and we'll debate with some more Muslims. So
Yeah,
see you guys
I
next
won't
time.
be there as a reminder. Which,
That's true. You won't be. I'm getting somebody
Yeah.
else. Cool.
so-
All right. I'll see you guys later.
You made it to the end of this video, which means this message matters to you. If you want to see more content like this reaching people for Christ, you can help make it happen. Your support makes these videos possible. Click the link below and donate today. And if you want to go even deeper, consider joining our Patreon community. You'll get early access to videos, behind-the-scenes content, and a place to connect with others passionate about this mission.